All right, folks, we'll get started in about 3 minutes. In the meantime, just make sure that you keep yourself muted and your video off until it's your time to appear, and I'll go through a couple housekeeping items here at the top of the hour. Thanks. All right. With it reaching 10 o'clock a.m., we will start with our next session of our March 11th, 2022 hearing. This session is scheduled to run from 10 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. So welcome everybody who joined us. My name is Ryan Nelsestua, and I'm Governor Evers' Chief Legal Counsel and also Chair of the Pardon Advisory Board. In addition to myself, we also have Judge Jeff Kremers, who's a retired judge from Milwaukee County. We have Myrna Warrington, who works in vocational rehabilitation, is also a tribal council member. And we have the Reverend Jerry Hancock, who is the director of the Prison Ministry Project and also a former state and county prosecutor. I'm going to go through a few housekeeping items and then we'll jump right into things. So first, when it's your time to speak, please unmute yourself and turn your camera on. We sent you some questions. Please be concise. We've had an opportunity to read through your application materials, so we do not need you to recite everything in detail. That said, we do want to hear from you in your own words. So please tell us how you ended up with a felony conviction, what happened afterwards, and why you believe you've earned the chance to receive a pardon from Governor Evers. At that point, you'll have about 5 minutes to do that. Afterwards, I will open things up to the board for questions. If you do run long, I will interrupt you so that we can get to questions. So please try to be concise with your opening statement. After we get done hearing from folks this morning, we will be meeting in closed session and be making decisions on who to recommend to Governor Evers for a pardon. If you receive majority support from the 4 board members present, so if you receive support from 3 of us, your application will be forwarded to Governor Evers. If you do not receive majority support, your application will be denied. You'll receive a letter from the board stating that your application has been denied and you'll be able to reapply in 18 months from the date of the letter. If your application goes to Governor Evers, he'll make a final decision. If he grants a pardon, he'll receive notification in about a month from today's hearing. If he rejects your application, you'll receive a denial letter stating as such, and you'll be able to reply in 18 months from the date of that letter. Denials, you should receive those and be notified in about a month from today's hearing, give or take. Other things, once you get done presenting before us, you do not need to stay on. You can jump off, so don't worry about sticking on. You can go about enjoying the rest of your day and your weekend. And with that, we are going to be going in the order that folks are listed on our open meeting notice today. So we'll start with Catherine, then Frank, then Felicia, then Terence, then Paul. Christine will no longer be appearing before us today, then Brian, Daniel, and Mark. And so with that, we'll start with Catherine. So Katie, if you wouldn't mind just done, there you go. Well, you've seen this before since you were on in the morning session or earlier session. So please proceed, Catherine.
Okay, I have 2 felonies for aiding and harboring a felon that I'm seeking forgiveness of. In September of 2005, I had a baby girl that I gave up for adoption. The adoption was open and I knew I was doing the right thing, but I still fell into a very dark place. Um, it was slow at first and it was easy for me to hide, but when I went home without her in my belly, that's when it really set in. And living with roommates at the time, we were all young and we had friends over all the time. We would throw parties. So it was kind of easy for me to fall into the habit of drowning my sorrows with booze and drugs and friends. And in that, I met a friend of one of my roommates who I started to date. And at the time, I didn't know that he was already a troublemaker. He kind of portrayed himself as like a preppy, do good kind of a guy. So I fell for it. I had this void to fill, and he filled it. And then my idiot self like followed along with the things that he was doing, and I didn't turn him in, and I caused some issues when the officers and detectives were trying to get him. I wouldn't let them in my house. I regret that now. If I could go back and do things differently, I'd turn him in. And I don't know, like it was 17 years ago, and thinking about all of this now, it's really tough. Like my whole body is shaking and it's just a lot to process. But the detectives eventually did come and pull me out of my work, and they questioned me and told me that I couldn't hide from it anymore, that they knew all of the things that Jared was up to and the trouble that he was in, and that if I kept making it difficult, I would be in trouble too. And that scared me enough to finally spill the beans of the stuff that I knew. And in doing so, I got the 2 felonies, 120 days in Huber and 3 days, or not 3 days, 3 years of probation. I haven't been in any type of trouble since. I haven't done anything miraculous in like some of the people before me, having done things for the youth. I don't have anything like that to say, but when I was 25, I moved away and met who's my husband now, and we started a family, and I was a stay-at-home mom for 7 years. But also during that time, the felony was following me. So it was hard to find good places to live that allowed felons, that was also safe for our kids. And at the time we lived in Houston, so there really wasn't anywhere that was safe that allowed felons. And that was really tough for me to swallow, because we have 3 little kids, ages 2, 5, and 7. They're little boys that we want to raise to be good citizens, honest people. So it's not just affecting me anymore. Now it's affecting my little boys and preventing things from happening for us. And if I'm forgiven for this, I'll still have that guilt that I've lived with the last 17 years of my life. But without that on my record, I'll be able to excel in my job. That's new for me. H&R Block took a chance on me, and they paid for my training, and I passed all of that. And now I'm a first-year tax professional. But I'm finding out that when I get to the enrolled agent part, the background check is more stringent for that. And I'm an accelerated tax professional. I'm already a level 2 when there's only 6 levels to get to. I've only been working since January when tax season opened, and I've already completed over 60 returns, getting high praise from my boss. And I really think that this is my calling. And I really want to make a go of it. And I think that this could be the place that I retire. And some of these ladies that I'm working with have been there for 16, 20 years. And I want that for myself. I want to put in some roots and be able to buy a house for my kids and not have this thing from my past that I've had to swallow for the last 17 years just continue to follow me. When it's basically painting me as a person that I'm not. I'm not that person that I was when I was in that dark place that long ago. I was 18 years old and young and dumb, and I'm not that person.
Great, thanks, Catherine. Questions from the board? Jeff?
Good morning, Ms. Diaz. Can you tell me if you know what happened to the guy that you were involved with at the time?
Yeah, so he's been on the news. He has a unique spelling of his last name, so he found out that somebody else had the same spelling that was in prison with him. And so he changed his name and applied for a like a transfer or something, and then ended up escaping here in Kenosha and was on the run. As far as I know from the news, he's been caught, but yeah, he's.
So you haven't had any contact with him since these crimes?
No, absolutely not.
Thank you.
Jerry?
Ms. Diaz, your mom wrote a really nice letter for you. I don't know if you saw that, but she talked about an incident with an elderly neighbor in Houston.
Yeah.
Can you tell us that story?
Yeah, so she was a nice older lady that lived next to us, and she was retired, so she had pretty much a set routine, and so did I. I was a stay-at-home mom with 3 little boys, so we were both home all day. And I had noticed that her car hadn't moved, and we had a couple of storms, so it was easy to tell that the mess from the storm was still on her vehicle and she hadn't moved it. And that became worrisome for me. So I went and knocked on her door and she wasn't answering, but I could hear her cats crying. And that was unusual because they were very quiet. Like, you wouldn't know that she had cats if she didn't let them outside once in a while. But they were just crying and crying and crying. And I just had this feeling in my gut that something wasn't right. So I walked around to the other side of the apartment where her balcony was, or not balcony, it was a porch, and it was enclosed with a fence. So I used the AC unit right there to jump up onto the AC unit to look over to see if I could see her. And I saw her on the floor in her bathroom. And I didn't know if that door was going to be open, and I didn't want to get stuck on that side. So I didn't jump that fence. I ran over to my house and got my phone, and I called 911, and then I called the management too to see if they might be able to come and get me a key, because I was knocking and knocking and knocking, and I had tried the door, but it hadn't opened. And by this point, the neighbor from upstairs had heard the commotion, and she came down and she called 911 already too, because she could see like I was frantic, and she didn't know what was wrong, but she knew something was. And then she said, "Did you try the door?" And I said, "Yes." And then she reached and tried the door, and it opened. And I don't know why I couldn't get the door open when I tried the first time, but it opened for her, and we went in and we got her up off the floor, and the paramedics came in, and she ended up being okay. But she had been on the floor for over a day. She said that she had fallen down and she had spent an entire day on the ground. It was bad.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? All right, well, thanks, Catherine, for appearing before us. As I said at the top of the hour, you'll hear from us in about a month in terms of the outcome of today's process, but hope you have a good weekend.
Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to listen.
Thank you. All right, next we will hear from Frank Awenson. My apologies if I mispronounced that, Frank.
That's happens all the time. I'm used to it.
I same here.
I'm sure you do. Yes, I'm sure you do too.
So go ahead, Frank.
So I'm asking for a pardon because it's been 18 years, but I know my actions back then didn't coincide with who I really am. I mean, I know the difference between right and wrong, and I was in a business. I was in a business with a silent partner, and she agreed to do some things for me to help the business, and in doing so, I ended up using a business credit card that was in her name on two different incidences. One to get gas and one to get a small cash advance. And this company that I was trying to get off the ground and get moving, everything was accumulating debt like crazy. Apparently, the odor elimination product I had, which was really good, nobody wanted because they were in contracts with other vendors and things like that. So I was frantic and trying to figure out. I kept on making excuses to her regarding all the debt and everything, and up until the time that I was arrested. I apologize, or I'm very sorry for my actions. I know the hardship that put Miss B into. I'm calling her Miss B because I don't want to identify her here. Anyway, if I could, obviously, if I could go back and change the things that I did, I would. But if I, had an opportunity to speak with her, she would be able to see, how difficult that I have it when I think about what I did, and the hardship that I put her into. And anyway, I ended up getting a plea bargain, and I ended up with 3 months in jail, but with Huber privileges, 9 months on the monitoring bracelet, and 10 years of probation. There were a couple incidences that I had on probably on every aspect of it, from my first week of being put into an orange inmate outfit because of having an unsecured locker while I was taking a shower. And the second one was going back from the pod, going back out to where they serve food, and asking for two new pieces of bread because the bread I had was stale. When that happened, that was the last weekend I was in jail, and I was really scared about that because all of a sudden the deputy confronted me, and there was a possibility he could have sent me downtown, and then that could have messed up with the rest of my schedule. The one cool thing that happened while I was in jail, and I swear that this is what really turned the corner for me, was a gentleman had gifted me a radio and headphones, and in doing so, I put them, when he was getting released, and when I put them on, and the first station that he had on was 102.5, which is the local Christian station here. And the music that was playing at that time was very, very impactful, very, it basically was a slap in the face for me to really get my act together. after I got real, I was, like I said, I was on Huber. I spent the last 2 weeks of my Huber in jail. I didn't go out because I didn't trust my employer to get me back and on time. From there, I waited until I got out. Eventually got a job with a really good community employer, which I think that he also helped save my life, change my direction. I love that job. It gave me a chance to get some stability, pay my debts, pay restitution, pay supervision fees. And basically just get me on the right path. I know I'm a monitoring bracelet for 9 months. I did I was a youth football coach, and one of the other coaches approached me. He was a Middleton police officer, and he saw the bulge on my ankle and stuff, and he asked me questions about it, and and after talking with him, I felt better, because I mean, I deserved everything that I got because of the things that I had done and how I'd put Miss B in the position that I did, and so to be scrutinized like that, with the police officer asking me questions on the field and stuff like that, it was, to me, it was a good thing. It was, it made me feel, when people can see, that you have a bulge underneath your sock, and it's just not a good feeling. I did have one incident when I was on the bracelet, and basically I had gone to, out of my time, I had run over to my neighbor's house because the house was on fire. And afterwards I called my caseworker and explained the situation. And so that was just the one incident with that. On probation, I was on probation for an extended period of time. I did have 2 incidences with that. One in 2006, I slipped up and I went onto a website that I wasn't supposed to be on, and I had somebody that basically called and filed a complaint, and I spent 8 days in jail. Well, the PO couldn't find me at the time because I had just closed on a house, and I had moved, and I hadn't given her my address, within those matter of those days. And anyway, that's not the first impression you want to give your neighbors, is having police and POs walking around your house and things like that. So that was another time where I just felt that I needed to get it together. I spent 8 days in jail for that, as well as I almost, thank God I didn't, but I almost lost that really good job that I had gotten. Upon getting out, I didn't get in trouble again for 6 years. 2012, I got my probation officer was on vacation. There was a complaint that came in that I was in business with a woman. That was proven wrong, but since my PO was on vacation for a couple of weeks, I spent 12 days in jail. Also had my probation temporarily revoked during that period of time. And so when I met with him later on, my last 2 POs really liked me because they knew they didn't have any they weren't going to have any trouble with me. My last PO, when this happened, when I met with him later on, he's like, if I hadn't been on vacation, this wouldn't have happened, because we both know you weren't in business with anybody. And I totally agree with that. And I get where it all came from, and from an interview that I had done on a radio show here locally and stuff. So I get it. But that too also made me, start wondering about it, about my behaviors and my actions. And, I was on probation, and, and I had to keep everything really tight. the good thing is I was actually released from probation 18 months early. 6 months later, after that incident, I was given a release from probation, again, 18 months early. Besides the youth football coaching that I did for several years, I did homeless outreach. I helped homeless veterans obtain housing. I'd go out into the woods with survival gear for encampments out in the woods and under the bridges. I would go out in January when, a few years ago when it was -10 to get people out of their encampments and get them into hotels and the shelters, because it was so cold. I don't do that anymore. I can't go out in the woods anymore. But I still try to every once in a while when I can financially help people to stay in their apartments and as well as pay their utilities to keep their utilities on. I donate hats, gloves, socks, and water to the shelters or the resource center on at least once a year. Even today, I do a lot of stuff in my neighborhood. I have got four houses of older people that I do their lawn mowing, I do their snow removal, and I don't charge them for doing that, just because it's kind of my way of giving back. I've written books. I've written books on behaviors. I've written. Now I have a bachelor's degree in organizational leadership and behavior, as well as a master's degree in organizational development. I truly believe that I have shown great progress from the time I was in trouble to the time where I am today. Why I want a pardon? I want to continue my studies, and I want to continue working on, learning more about the brain and how humans think and how humans behave, and there's this section on most applications of associations, and which is a character section, and unfortunately, even though they've reached out for me to join their organizations and things, I know without having a pardon, they can't accept me. So that's one of the reasons why I want a pardon, but also I want to be a complete citizen again. I want to be able to do the things that I want to go back to. I don't want to go back to doing the dumb stuff that I did, but I want to go back to being a citizen that has the opportunities to do whatever they want to do and get whatever licenses they want to get. And, whether it's real estate license, whether it's, become a notary, any of that stuff. That would allow me to continue on, like I said, with my studies.
Great. I think, Frank, I'm going to open up for questions. You've
Yeah.
been very thorough. Questions from the board. Jerry and then Jeff.
All right. You said you opened these credit card accounts and use them a few times for business. In the criminal complaint, there are pages and pages of credit card use, starting with $1,670 to Ward Brought Music in Madison. What was that for? What business was that for?
That wasn't for business. So I
All right, just a minute. So you use that card, but not for business.
Yes, I bought
Okay,
a drum
now-
set for the church.
Okay, and what about Karaoke Star in Phoenix, Arizona? Was that for business?
No, it was not.
Okay, and a lot of these charge cards you used, you signed your name for.
Right. Yes.
But some, And we know Ms. Borre's name. Is that Borre?
Yep.
Borre. And sometimes you signed her name.
Now, I don't remember doing that. but
Okay,
not-
let me
I'm not
let me
saying-
ask you about this.
I'm not saying that I didn't. I'm just saying I don't remember doing that.
Okay, American Bank of Fond du Lac for $100. These were all for about $100 or $200, probably cash advances.
Right.
Okay. And your application was really complete, and you had a lot of wonderful letters, including one from Karen Andriano, who I know well. But there was no mention of your victim. There was no mention about how you thought this might have affected her life. Why was that not in there?
Why was that not in my application?
Yeah,
I think I answered the questions. All what the questions were I haven't spoken to her, to Sandy, since 2004. I mean, when I was told that I couldn't contact her, I took that literally. And then I also looked at it this way: is why would she want to talk to me?
well, I'm not asking you about talking to her. I'm asking why there was nothing in your application to recognize the harm that you did to her. You characterize this as that you had done dumb stuff long ago. And this seems to me to be the effect it had on her life was way beyond dumb stuff.
Oh, I 100% agree. Yes. Oh, I mean, there isn't a month that goes by that I don't think about how I screwed up her, her life at that time. Because she is the victim here. I mean, if you ask my last probation, he'd say, "Oh no, there's 14 victims here because there's every person that you took from the credit card." I get that. I mean, I understand that, but she's the actual victim here. She's the one who put her faith in me, and I let her down in a big way. I'd take it back in a heartbeat. I would like to contact her and I would like to talk with her, but I don't know why. I don't know if it's something that she'd even be interested in doing. I do know this: at my sentencing hearing, she asked the judge to give me 30 days so I could think about what I had done. To me, that's very impactful that she had just asked them for 30 days.
Okay, thank you.
If I could figure out another way to make amends for her, I would.
Jeff, you have a question?
Well, not anymore. Jerry covered the
Okay.
topics I was going to ask about, but I do know from the victim's letter that it seemed to indicate that she might appear today. And I don't know if you wanted to ask if, not that she has to or was expected to, but if she wanted to make a statement.
I think she was going to watch.
Okay.
Yep.
Right.
All right. Well, thank you, Frank, for appearing before us and sharing your story with us. As you heard me say from previous applicants, you'll hear from us in about a month in terms of the outcome of today's process, but I appreciate your time and hope you have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next, we will be hearing from Felicia Robertson. So Felicia, there you are. Well, you've seen how this goes. So if you could start off with just please be concise. If you could answer those questions. I know they're lengthy ones, but if you could answer them in 5 to 10 minutes, that'd be great. And then I'll open it up for questions. So please proceed.
Sure. A brief summary of the offense. It was a felony forgery on March 4th, 1990. I entered into a store with a family friend that was writing checks, and I decided to write a check as well with her. First, let me start off by thank you for bringing, today, deciding to talk with me. I was 19 years old. I was single mother too. I was a high school dropout, and I was desperate, thinking that, I wanted the things that I seen other people with and the things that she had. So I decided to be basically a follower at that time and not, work hard and get the things that I needed for myself. So I followed, I was a follower at that time. Um, I was sentenced on September the 19th, 1991. I was sentenced to 3 years probation, and I had restitution, which I paid. I was never given any jail time. It has been over 30 years. I have never had any other type of conviction. Um, Never got in any other trouble with the law since that time. I have learned the lesson, and if I could go back and take everything back, I would. Um, um, I'm kind of nervous, I'm sorry. I am seeking a pardon so that I may feel like American again, and so that I can open up my own business one day and provide to my children and prove to my children that anything is possible in life with faith and the right guidance and a second chance to do. Um, I'm currently working on opening my own home health agency or group home. That is what I want to do, or either do nursing with my daughter. She just graduated, and that's what she's doing at this time, and she wants me to go back with her. Also, that's my grandfather's dream. He always told me I had a lot of patience and that I would be a good nurse. So I'm currently a personal care worker, which I work with a little girl that has Rett syndrome daily. And but I'm not a nurse, so I would like to become a nurse so that I can, work more in the health field. I have made several advancements in my life. It's been over 30 years since my conviction. I have never got into any other trouble. I've learned my lesson and realized that my freedom is more important than any material thing on this earth. I've learned that I must work for whatever I want in life and show my children that they can have a better life if they follow the laws and work to receive the things that they desire in life. I learned that independence as a mother, and that I need to follow my dreams when it comes to what I want, like opening up my own business. With your help, I will be able to open up my own business. I've also worked in daycare before. I've had my center director's degree. I have a child care administration assistant certificate. I've got 6-week clerical administrative training since that time, but I'm still haven't been able to advance and get other jobs that I can move forward and yeah.
Great, thanks, Felicia. Questions for Ms. Robertson? All right, well, you're thorough in your application and your presentation. Thanks, Felicia, and best of luck on your plans on becoming a nurse. And you'll hear from us in about a month from today.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you. You too. All right, next we'll hear from Paul Spurk. Paul, if you wouldn't mind unmuting yourself and turning your camera on.
What about Terence Ross?
Oh, sorry. Yep. Nope, you're right. I jumped ahead. Sorry about that. Paul will be right with you. Terence, you almost missed out here, but there you go. It's nothing personal. So please proceed, Mr. Ross.
How you guys doing? First, I want to thank everybody. This is actually big for me because it's been a long time. I've been working towards this whole setup here, actually just coming in front of somebody for a lot of years. So, but yeah, I was I was a teenager when I got convicted with driving without owner's consent. I was working at a rental car company at the time, which hurts. Great company to work for. Like I said, I was still in high school. Actually, I just finished high school. It was a great job to work for, cleaning cars, getting everything situated. Unfortunately, I had my own vehicle at the time, but I got into a little accident, after that accident, I decided to borrow a car from work. I never took like physically was out to steal anything. I was just borrowing a vehicle, coming back and forth, going home, coming back to work. But instead of me parking that vehicle at work, I'll park it up the street. Just so I had some kind of transportation. I know it was a bus, but I figured I was already driving. I just borrow a car. One day coming home from work, or not coming home, or coming back to that car, that's where I actually got caught. And so I think what happened was someone called it in and said, hey, we know someone who's driving around in your car. And they called me when I was getting off of work. But it was just transporting back and forth to work, going home and coming back until I got my car fixed. That was the whole thing. Like I said, I was a kid, well, teenager, just about grown. I made a mistake. I can't go back. You can't put a rewind button on life. But at the time, you go through a lot as teenagers, especially now with me raising two boys myself who are actually hitting that teenage stage. Just a lot of stuff that I've seen and I know now that I'm trying to groom them and prepare them a lot better than, how I was brought up with seeing a lot of stuff at that age. I was given 3 years probation. I served that. I had 200 hours of community service. I served a couple days in jail, which was hell, be honest, because I was young and going into that environment, I didn't expect to see some of the stuff that I seen at the time. I think my first or second day in there was an incident that happened, and we were on like a lockdown. And I remember one of the representatives of the state coming to talk to me about my case and call me out during that lockdown. I remember this like so clearly in my head. And as I'm walking out, they walk in, we talk, and then they walk me back to my cell. As I'm going to walk back to my cell, I get guys calling out the door. What did they call you out for? What did they call you out for? And then I heard from someone in there that they thought that I went out to tell on the incident that happened earlier, which scared me. But like I said, I learned from that, and that jail time was nothing for me, nothing that I want to see. I bring that story up to my kids just to let them know I hide nothing from my kids. I let them know this because why not hear everything from your father as far as what goes on out here, so you don't have to experience some of the stuff that I went through. But yeah, the 3 years probation is what I served. 2 years, 200 hours of community service. But I learned from that. And at the time, I apologized to Hertz. I apologized to my boss at the time. And I instructed to them exactly, pretty much what I was doing it for and things like that. Since then, it held me back in those first couple years from obtaining work. Usually, you're kind of like a red flag. I think I passed all of my interviews for every company I applied for with no problem. But when it got to the point of them pulling your background and seeing that felony, I think it drew a red flag. And that's like the only thing they kind of looked at was like, okay, yeah, you was great during the interview, but we can't hire you due to this. And I went through that for a long time, and it really stuck and it hurt. But I made it through it. And I've been working for the cable company now for Spectrum, which is at the time was Time Warner. I remember the hiring recruiter, we brought up the felony incident, and she told me, she said, I'm going to give you a chance. And I've been with that company ever since. I've been there 15 years. 15 years I've been doing cable service throughout all of Southeastern Wisconsin. I'm a great technician. I'm great at what I do. And another reason I stuck with that is because they were loyal enough to me to give me the opportunity to give me work. And I ran with that. And I learned a lot from working with this company. I met a lot of great people. During the pandemic, I was an essential worker. So I was still out here working, making sure everyone's internet is up and running. But I learned a lot from that. I've been married 14 years. I got 4 kids. My stepdaughter, who I've been in her life, she'll be 18 next month. I learned a lot from her, from being from learning what it's like to be a father. My other kids, today is actually my 9-year-old daughter's birthday. I have 2 sons, 2 girls, and 2 girls. And it's just been a great thing being a father and learning everything, going through this whole little thing. Like I said, right now, I am a personal trainer. I'm heavy into fitness. I was diagnosed with MS about 5-6 years ago. So my health and my fitness is number one for me. I also just got my LLC. I'm looking at starting a trucking company, as well as opening up a fitness center as well. I just got my CDL permit. So right now I'm going through the whole thing of trying to obtain my actual CDL license. The reason I'm looking for the pardon and everything is because, like I said, it's been years. It's been 20, 21, 22 years since that conviction. I learned a lot from that. I haven't had any incidences or anything since. I'm an open book, but I learned a lot of things about life. But I don't want this to have any type of effect on any of my future endeavors, especially with me. I drive all day now for the cable company, but just jumping into my own businesses and things like that, I don't know what to expect in the future, but it's just in case. I'm just trying to cover all my bases on my past and kind of leave that stuff in the past. And like I said, I'm a better man now. Like I said, the 2 young men that I'm raising now, that's key for me, because I want these boys they're going to experience a lot of things in life, but I don't want them to go through some of the stuff that I went through. So this is why I have a lot of these conversations with these guys now, just so they know. And that's key for me, is family. Family for me is number one. So yeah, that's my reason for wanting to pardon. And like I said, I want to thank you guys again, just because so long I've been going through this. I remember getting rejected letters from so many years, but just to have the opportunity to be in front of someone talking about this, and opportunity to try to see if I can get this thing amends off my record. It's a good thing for me.
Great, thanks, Mr. Ross. I'll open up for questions. Any questions from the board? Jeff.
Good morning, Mr. Ross. Mr. Ross, in your application, and then again here today, you talk about borrowing a car, and I know it wasn't borrowing it, you were stealing it, to get to and from work. But in the criminal complaint, it says 2 things that I think are significant that I'd like your position on. One is, you didn't just drive that Pontiac Grand Prix to and from work. You drove it around with your friends and to parties and so forth, and it was damaged to the tune of, I don't know how much damage was caused, but it was damaged by some kind of an accident, and there were 3,000 miles put on it. So that's one thing that I think we need to clarify. And then the second thing is, the complaint says you also took another car, a Nissan, that you gave to a friend of yours to drive as well. Are those facts that are in the complaint, are those accurate as well?
The car that was given to the young lady was also an employee that worked there as well with me. I pretty much just filter in what I was doing, just because, she was wondering, what are you driving? Where are you getting these cars from? I said,
so you gave her a car to drive as well?
Well, I didn't necessarily give it to her. She did. I filtered in on what I was doing, and she went ahead and did what I did.
Because in the complaint, it says this is what you told the deputy. It's not me making it up or inferring something or somebody else saying it. You told the deputy that you took the Nissan and gave it to her. Okay, I gave it to her, but it's just showing her what's what. I didn't physically pull up with the car, but I was showing her the process on how I did it. Okay. So there was a side swipe. Like I said, I was driving, but I'm still a teenager driving. I side swiped the car. I recall trying to take it somewhere to get fixed, and they started asking me questions about it. And I remember leaving about it because I was spooked. I didn't know about giving them no info or anything. I was like, oh no, I don't want to deal with this part of it. But yeah, that was the damage part of it that happened. All right. Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? All right. Well, thanks, Mr. Ross, for appearing before us, and hope you have a good weekend, but I appreciate your time.
All right, thank you guys. Have a good weekend too.
Thank you. All right. Well, Paul, now it's your turn. Sorry for the false alarm there. So if you wouldn't mind unmuting yourself, and then you can proceed.
Okay. Yeah. How's everybody doing?
Good, good.
Okay. So a brief summary of what I've done in the past here. I've had a felony escape. And this was basically a walk away from Huber. And to be real general, I just left so I could get high. It's pretty easy. Next one was a forgery, party to a crime. Again, I was trying to feed my addiction through theft, and this is how I did it. And the last one here I have from Kenosha here. This is taking and driving without owner's consent. I did not have a car. I was in Kenosha at the time, and long story short, I wanted to get to Milwaukee. I wanted to buy some drugs to get high. So I took the car and drove it as far as I could. I did blow the engine. I did have restitution for that, and I did pay that back. I've paid all my fees in the past. I was sentenced ultimately to 3 years, which I did. I did fine in prison. I didn't cause any trouble. I was trying to better myself at that point. Upon release to probation, I did have a hiccup in there. I don't know if it's noted or not, but I did contact my probation officer, and I told her that I did use, and she had me come in, and we took a drug test, and we talked about it, and she sent me to outpatient. It was from there that I really got rooted into Narcotics Anonymous, which is a 12-step program to help addicts. I'm currently, now that I'm off probation, I'm still working in Narcotics Anonymous. I'll be celebrating my 7th year coming up. I sponsor anybody and everybody that comes through the doors and help them try to get clean. This was my downfall. This was why I collected so many felonies and misdemeanor charges. My sponsor is Paul F. I believe he did have a letter in there to help me. He's former alderman for Waukesha. And so far I've been, once I've got that all cleared up off probation, I settled into a job, welding at Weldall Manufacturing. I've been there for just over 11 years. There's also a letter in there from my employer. And now the reason I'm asking for a pardon, there was a couple of incidents, not to mention that it opened the doors to some of my past careers, which is being a loan officer, which I really love to do. But I had the opportunity to go work at NASA to install a lot of their beams for rocket testing. I was chosen by Dave, which is the owner, to go to Texas to do this. And I was very excited. And I thought maybe I better ask to see if my felonies might get in the way of this. And he said they would, that I would not be able to go on the team because I would not be able to have clearance. There's been several of these jobs that I could do, but unable to because of that. And like I say, I do very well at my job. I have excelled there. I think that's just about it. I mean, obviously I have remorse for what I did. This is something that I will take to my grave. I mean, I am an addict. I don't use, but it's something that I have to keep in check. I know this. And I think just by helping other people and going to meetings regularly has maybe grow exponentially, become a better person. Not only that and just the reward of seeing people get clean is very rewarding to me. And one of my youngest is 15. It's very sad that in today's day and age that we actually have addicts that young. But he just got a year a couple of weeks ago and did speak at our meeting, and it was very proud moment for me. I think, a brief statement of why I think I should have a pardon. I know it was the drugs and the drug use that led me down this path of criminal activity. And I know I haven't had anything since the last time. I think it was 2007. I haven't even had a speeding ticket or anything like that. I've purchased a house and I've been doing very well. But it is the holdback of furthering my career in welding. Also, then I also have the awesome option of going back into being a mortgage broker. I think that's all I have.
Thanks, Paul. I may have overlooked this in your application, but how long were you using for?
I was using, I started in high school and then ramped up. I started to really start using pretty bad, like in 2003, 2004, maybe even a little earlier than that. And it really led to my demise. I've been pulling myself out of that pit for a long time. I feel like I'm at a place where it's all behind me now, and I'm just helping other addicts pull them out of that pit as well.
Sure. Can you walk me through just a couple of things? You talked about your felony convictions, and then, you had a number of operating while revoked, and I'm not especially interested in that. What I am more interested in is, I know this is a long time ago, but looking back in the 1990s, you had a number of times you were arrested, but charges were dismissed. And so I'll list off, I think there's about 5 things I'm especially interested in. So one was 1994, you're charged with misdemeanor battery with a domestic abuse modifier, but it was the charge was dismissed. Same thing happened again in 94, in 95, and then again in 95, you were charged with a misdemeanor knowingly violating a domestic abuse order. What was going on?
That was me and my girlfriend at the time. It turned out to be my first wife. We drank a lot. I'm not a very violent person. I don't have any other things as far as violence is concerned. We would get into an argument. I'll be honest with you. She swung off on me a lot of times, and she's the first person to call the police, and I'm the first person to be arrested. I still have a scar on my nose where she bit my nose, and I have a scab on my arm where she stabbed me. So, it was a very abusive kind of relationship. Not towards, I am not, sometimes it's hard to believe that sometimes the guys are not the abusers, but this is what happened. This, as far as I recollect, we did do a lot of drinking then. This was back in 90. If you say 94, I was probably 23, 22. And that was just the way that was just what we did, How
long were you two together for?
Well, we were together. I joined the Marine Corps in 92. We got married, and then I think we got divorced in 94 or 95 or 96 or something like that.
Okay.
We have 2 children together. They're awesome. I visit them all the time. They visit me. I don't really talk to her anymore because I don't want to. She does have kind of an abusive personality. So, I just stay away from it. I don't. Yeah, it's better for me,
No, understood. Other questions from the board? Jeff?
Good morning, sir.
Hey.
I want to be a little careful here with this question, and you should be mindful when you answer it. Mindful because this is on Wisconsin Eye, so it's available to anybody from the public. And I thought I heard you say, and this is where I just want to make sure that I heard this right, because maybe the public heard it that way as well. Did you indicate that your 15-year-old son just got a year of sobriety? Did I understand that right?
No. This is
Good.
one of my sponsees. Turned.
Okay.
He was 15 when he came to the rooms. He asked me to sponsor him, and I of course, and his mom would drop him off, and I would, after the meeting, would drop him off back at his mom's. I spoke with his mom and, introduced myself and everything like that. We invite him to all of our events and activities. Mom started, come around a little more and say, oh, these guys aren't so bad. It's not a cult, or whatever. It's just, whatever. There's a big problem with pills, Oxycontins and things like this in the high schools. And it seems like a lot of time that these kids don't even have a chance to be an addict before they die. So it's.
And I appreciate that, Mr. Sprague. I just wanted I must have misheard you. And I just wanted to clear that up, and hopefully nobody else misheard it.
Okay.
So I'm glad we cleared that up. So thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? All right, well, thanks, Paul, for appearing before us, and congratulations on your sobriety. And you'll hear from us in about a month from today's date.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, we will not be hearing, it is listed on the public meeting notice, hearing from Christine Labont, but she has withdrawn. So instead, we will be hearing from Brian Taylor next. So Brian, if you wouldn't mind turning your camera on and unmuting yourself.
Okay, good morning.
Morning. Well, you've seen how this works now, Brian, so please proceed.
Thank you. Well, good morning to all of you, and thank you for your consideration for my pardon application today. I'm seeking a pardon for my possession of narcotics charge that I've earned back in 2006. I was on a path of destruction, and I hurt several people along the way. Growing up on the reservation in rural Wisconsin, we grew up poor, and addiction was weaved throughout my family. My father passed away from an alcohol-related car accident when I was 6, and that devastated me. I mentally lost my mother shortly after that due to alcoholism, as she just checked out. When I was 13, I was prescribed morphine for my physical muscle condition. However, not only did that help my physical pain, it numbed my emotional pain. From then on, I was on the hunt for the next painkiller, which ended up with myself stealing fentanyl patches from our family friend, along with others. As years have gone by, many other hurts have happened and the addiction progressed. When I was 20 years old, I went over to a family house and asked to use the bathroom. I stole his fentanyl patches. I did the same thing at several other in the community. I stole, I lied, I hurt good people, all to satisfy my addiction. I was the problem in the community, and I'm thankful I was stopped. What the defendant said I did, and I embarrassingly admit it. I want you all to know that what I did was wrong, and as I said in that court of sentencing, I apologize to all the victims and accept full responsibility for my actions. I was a very untrustworthy and selfish person. I was convicted of the possession of narcotics. Burglary charges were dismissed with a plea deal. I was sentenced to a year-long teen treatment program and 3 years of probation. While in treatment, I received my GED and graduated with honors. In treatment, unfortunately, the main victim, Charlie, had passed away from cancer, but I was able to contact his family after I graduated and receive forgiveness from his daughter on his behalf. It was very beautiful and healing for all of us. I have also received forgiveness from some of the other victims. I had to also forgive myself. I feel that I have forgiven myself, and the more good I do for others, the more I feel the forgiveness. I was released off probation early due to my acceleration in my recovery. Since then, I have been on a mission to helping people with life-controlling issues. I want others to know that there is hope and they don't have to go down the road I did. I've been married for 13 years and have 3 wonderful children who know the effects of my record. We've been denied many apartment applications due to my felony, and one of the biggest hurts for my oldest son is that I was unable to assist in the coaching of his soccer team at a school due to. I went to Bible college, and I'm currently licensed through the Assemblies of God. I've worked and volunteered as a youth pastor for years. I've been sharing my story to the world and making a successful film that includes my story with 3 others. It has been shown a million times in over 75 countries, and it's even in jails and treatment centers all around. I've been clean and sober since my conviction, which is 15 years, and I've not gotten in trouble. I have partnered with the drug court program County under Honorable Judge Malgail Wyrick to share my story and hope with them. I have been on several mission trips in the country and outside the country to share the hope that we can have in recovery. I have touched the hearts and left an imprint on those struggling with addiction. I have helped numerous people to get into treatment centers and turn their lives around. Freedom from addiction. I'm seeking a pardon to further my education and untie the hands that a felony conviction has bound. I currently work at Teen Challenge that helps people with life-controlling issues. However, I'm limited to a certain location that I can work in this company due to my record. The company is slowly transitioning into not having felonies, as it has now become a law in Florida. And I fear that it's starting in Georgia. Now, Teen Challenge is a ministry that does not pay well and provide for my family. I recently tried to get a secondary job at a hospital. They said I had the job, but they were waiting for the background check to come. Well, I knew right there I was up against that ball and chain that once again, the results came back, and as I figured, I didn't receive the job. I want to continue to help kids as I help teens now who have already gone down the road I did. I want to reach them by sharing hope before they go down that road. I want to volunteer at my child's school. I want to possibly even work in the school system. I need to be able to find better paying employment and can sustain my family and still do the work that I believe so strongly in. And in doing that, I'm seeking this pardon. I ask you today, please hear my heart. Look at my commitment to helping others and change that I have in my life and grant me your approval to further this pardon process. Please break the change that I put on my hands 15 years ago. And thank you for hearing me, and I'm willing to answer any questions that you may have.
Thanks, Brian. I know this is while you're still struggling with sobriety, but can you walk me through what happened in 2006 with you had a harassment restraining order that was granted against you?
Yes, so there was apartment buildings called the Sunrise Apartments, and I had a friend who lived there, and I would go to his apartment quite often. And when I was there, I see an opportunity to go into other people's homes and welcome, but do the wrong thing by go to their medicine cabinet and take their medicine or steal their money. So they put a restraining order on me to keep me away from that apartment complex, which was a good thing.
Okay, thank you. Jerry?
Brian, did you really eat 6 fentanyl patches in the back of the squad car when you were arrested? And if so, how come you're still alive?
Yes, sir. I did. And even though I stopped breathing, I firmly believe in myself that the Lord had a plan for me. I still question that myself, and I get that stirring in my stomach that how did I survive? How did I still live? I mean, if any detail would have changed just a minute, I wouldn't be here. It has to be by God's grace and a purpose and a plan that He has for me to share with others to help them. That's all I can explain why.
Thank you.
Other questions from the board? Oh, Brian, thanks for appearing before us, and congratulations on your sobriety, and thank you for all of the good work you've done for other people who struggle with addiction. And you'll hear from us in about a month from today's hearing.
Okay, and my address has changed. Not the one that's on the original application. It is on the email that was
Okay.
sent. Is there anything I need to do about that?
As long as you notified, so you were in contact, just make sure when you've been in contact with the scheduling on this, so you would have received an email from one of our partner assistants, just make sure they have that address. And if they do, we'll be all good.
Okay, I'll do it.
Yep, thank you. All right, next we will be hearing from Daniel Moeller. Daniel? Daniel, if you can hear me, just need you, there you go. Just need you to turn your camera on.
Oh, is it on yet?
Nope, not yet. There should be a little camera icon in the lower left-hand corner of your screen, and you can just tap that or click on it.
Mm,
Otherwise, I just did ask to start your video, so you can just say yes to that. There we
Okay.
go. We got you.
Oh,
The wonders of technology, but it does spare you a trip to Madison. So there is an upside to it. So, so Daniel, you've seen how this works. Now's the opportunity to share your story with us, and then we'll open it up for questions. So please proceed.
okay. My name is Dan Moeller, and shortly after I was 18 years old, out of high school, I didn't finish graduation. One teacher told me I wasn't going to graduate, so I quit and I left and I met up with Scott Ziesmer, and he talked me into going out partying, and we robbed a few places or burglarized them. And he told me if we ever get caught, they wouldn't do nothing to us and all this. And it's like, against my better judgment, I went along with it. And on about the third place we did, we got caught by the police, and I told them everything. And then from there, we had to go to jail, and they said, "Do you want to call anybody?" And I said, "No." I didn't call nobody, but somehow my dad found out and he bailed me out. And then we went to court, and I had to serve 6 months in jail, three years probation, and get my GED. And I didn't have no problems with being in jail under the Huber law. I worked at different places, got my GED, and then went on to the apprenticeship for millwrights, and I've pretty much been doing that ever since. And this has been 35 years ago, 31 years ago. And I haven't done anything bad since.
One question I have for you, Dan, you've been in New London pretty much your whole life, right?
Yes.
It's not that big of a town, if my memory serves me right. It's like,
No,
what,
it's not.
5,000-7,000 people. So I'm sure you probably had interaction with some of these businesses or owners.
Yes.
Walk me through that. Describe, what was it like? Did you talk to them? Did you apologize? What's happened?
The bar Copper Shot that we had broken into, I know Rick Bowman.
Mm-hmm.
He's the owner. And I had told him I was sorry. And I had paid all the restitution back from all the other ones. And I don't know.
Okay. Other questions from the board? Jeff?
And so following up on what Ryan just asked you about, given that you've lived in the same area for so long, you must know everybody there or most people there, and they know you. And it's not required, but you don't have any letters of support for this. Any reason why you didn't ask some of your friends or acquaintances to write a letter on your behalf?
At the time when I sent this out, I didn't know what it all pertained. I mean, I'm sure I could have gotten letters from people, but I didn't know I had to do that.
No, you didn't have to. You didn't have to do it. It's just
Oh,
most people have letters. And so when we see one that doesn't have letters, usually somebody will ask, how come you didn't get a letter? Sometimes people are embarrassed and sometimes they have other reasons. But I just wondered what your answer was, and that's fine. I think, so why do you want this pardon? I mean, it doesn't seem like it's affected your ability to do the kind of work that you like to do. So why do you want a pardon?
I am going to retire pretty soon this year. And there's a close friend of mine, he wants me to go hunting with him. And without a pardon, I cannot go hunting. And I really do want to go hunting with him. He's a lot older, and I don't think anybody else goes up with him anymore because pretty much all his friends have passed away, and I don't want to see him go hunting alone either.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Dan? All right, Mr. Mueller, thanks for appearing before us, and hope you have a wonderful weekend, and you'll hear from us in about a month.
Okay.
All right, thanks. All right, next we will be hearing from our final applicant for the morning. So Mark, thanks for waiting patiently. You've now had the benefit of seeing this probably more times than you want, but thanks for waiting, and please proceed.
Hey, sorry, I'm in a car. I'm on a family vacation. We're in the mountains in Tennessee, so I had to drive down a bit to get some reception here. But for my story, I caught a felony for possession of narcotics back in 2012. I struggled towards my end of high school up until I caught this felony charge. Drugs, I was on heroin. It was very hard to get off of it. I was disappointing my family. My mom tried sending me down to my grandparents for a few months in Florida. And upon my return, my children's mother, who I was using with back then, picked me up from the airport. She supplied the drugs, had them with her in the car. I willingly took them, knowing I shouldn't have, because it was that itch that was in the back of my mind for a long time. Trying to get off it was very hard. I caught my charge. All I remember is I woke up in the airport parking structure down here in Milwaukee. I had police officers, firemen. My family was all standing around. I had no idea what had happened, but I must have taken too much because I didn't use for a few months. So I overdosed. And the last thing I just remember was waking up on the floor of the airport parking structure. After that, they ended up taking me to the hospital. I was in there for a few hours, and then they took me downtown. I was then released on probation. I had 3 years of probation. That was a bit of a struggle. I never got revoked. I continued to use. Obviously, I was struggling with the addiction back then. I was just on the wrong path, and then the last time that I went in, my mom was there when I had gotten arrested, and she was bawling her eyes out. crying. And right then and there, I knew I had to change my life. I had to stop this. I had to become strong enough to overcome the addiction. And since then, I got out in 2015, so about 7 years ago. I did warehouse jobs. I did that for a few years, and then I decided I'd like to go into the trades. I am now an HVAC technician for Vessel Services in Caledonia. I'm their lead tech. I do service, installs, all that. My free time I spend with my daughters. I have 2 daughters myself, and I have 2 soon-to-be stepdaughters. I've recently gotten engaged. Me and my fiance have bought a house. And the reason I'm looking for the pardon is because I'd like to have it off my record for numerous reasons. I had trouble finding employment because of my felony charge. They can't obviously tell you that, but in the back of my head, I knew that was the reason I wasn't getting it. I plan on being married here shortly, and we were going to do a destination wedding. So, I can't get a passport as of right now, obviously. And I'd just like to feel like, an American citizen again, get a second chance. I've been clean and sober for over 7 years now, and life's going great for me.
Great, thanks, Mark. Questions from the board? Jerry, and then Jeff.
Mark, when you were arrested, there was a 2-year-old child in the back seat of the car.
Yes, sir.
What happened to that kid?
She was in Florida with me. I took her at the time. When we came back, my mother took custody of them. I have 2 children. She took custody, guardianship of them when I had the case, and they're still currently living with my mother.
Okay, thanks.
I haven't seen their mother since 2012. She disappeared, and I've been trying to get myself back up into a position where I can afford to have them living with me and give them the life they deserve.
Okay, thanks.
No problem.
Jeff?
That was my question.
I have 2 questions. So in terms of your felony, that was in 2012, correct, Mark?
Yes, sir.
So in 2014, and this was, dismissed, but you were arrested for child abuse for intentionally causing harm. What happened with that? Does that ring any bells?
No, sir.
Okay. Sometimes the background checks aren't 100% correct. So the other question I have is then fast forward to 2015. According to our DOC records, you spent time in confinement for non-compliance with your probation. What was that about?
That was I was still using at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously I was scared to go into my probation officer's office because she was going to drug test me and send me back, obviously. So I didn't report to her at the time. And my mom was just overwhelmed and sad with everything that had been going on with me, drug related. And she ended up calling the Oak Creek Police Department on me. And they came and got me at her house.
Mm-hmm.
And I sat 6 months at the House of Corrections. My PO had me sit the rest of my time and until my probation was up.
Okay. Well, thanks for appearing before us, Mark. How long? I have one last important. Oh, Jerry, go ahead.
Yeah, Mark, are you still attending NA meetings?
No, sir. So I know everybody's story is different, but I was going to numerous NA meetings when I had gotten out in 2015. And from what I saw, there were people that were actually high at the meetings. And when the meetings would get dismissed and we'd be walking to our cars, people would be selling drugs out of their trunks. And I knew that if I was going to stay clean and sober, I had to get away from that. So I tried spending most of my time with my kids and family to keep my head clear and stay out of trouble.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Well, thanks for appearing before us, Mark. How long are you on vacation down in Tennessee?
Till Monday. My
Monday?
my daughter has a dance competition down here.
Great. Well, hope that goes well. Thank you for your time and enjoy your vacation weekend.
I appreciate it. You guys have a great day.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, that now concludes our morning session for the 10 to 11:30. I'm going to make a motion that we move into closed session for the purposes of considering specific applications and personal histories and the other, and is stated on the open meeting notice. Is there a second? Jeff seconds it. Anybody opposed? Hearing none, it passes unanimously. So we will turn off the live streaming and move Wisconsin. Welcome, everybody. I'll be with you a minute. Let's just give Myrna and Jerry a minute. All right, well, we will get started. Just one second. All right, so welcome everybody. We are now in the afternoon session, the 1 o'clock to 2:30 session of the Governor's Pardon Advisory Board for March 11th, 2022. My name is Ryan Nelsestuen. I am chair of the Pardon Advisory Board. In addition to myself, we have a couple of board members with us today, including Judge Jeff Kremers, a retired judge from Milwaukee County, Myrna Warrington, who works in vocational rehabilitation as a tribal council member, and also the Reverend Jerry Hancock, who's director of the Prison Ministry Project and a former county and state prosecutor. I'm going to go through a couple of housekeeping items, and then we are going to jump right into things so that you all can get out of here and go about your weekends. Hopefully you can go do your weekend after this. One, we are live streaming this both on YouTube and Wisconsin Eye. Wisconsin Eye is Wisconsin's version of C-SPAN. So because of that, in order to make it easier on the board members and know who we're talking to and everything, I have two requests. One, you mute yourself. You can mute yourself by clicking, there's a little microphone icon in the lower left-hand corner in your screen. You can just tap that or click on it, depending on what type of device you're on, and that will mute yourself. Also, please turn off your camera until it's your turn to speak. You do the same thing. There's a little camera icon. You just click on that and it will turn off your camera. When I call you up, and I will be calling folks up in the order that they are listed on the open meeting notice, unmute yourself, turn your camera back on. We are going to be going in the order listed on the notice. So we'll be starting with Jeremy, then Travis, then Myron, then Quentin, John, Getchell, Williams, Marcia, and finally Lisa. So we'll be going in that order. If we have any issues with audio or IT issues, we'll jump over you. We'll have somebody from the governor's staff reach out and we'll get you connected so you are heard today. When it's your turn to speak, I will call you up, turn your camera on and your audio on. We sent you some questions. We want you to answer those concisely. So we don't need a 15-minute statement. We want to hear from you concisely, in short, what happened in terms of why you have a felony conviction, what happened afterwards, and why you believe you've earned the chance to receive a pardon. Basically, why are you here and why should we recommend you for a pardon? After we get done hearing from everybody, we'll meet in closed session. At that time, we as a board will deliberate and make recommendations to the governor. If you receive majority support from the board members present, which means 3 of us 4 members here today, your application will go to Governor Evers and he'll make a final decision. If Governor Evers rejects your application or you don't receive majority support from the board, your application will be rejected and you'll receive a denial letter from the board in about a month from today's date. If you're forwarded and Governor Evers decides to grant you a pardon, you'll receive that pardon in the mail, again, in about a month, give or take from today's date. After you hear from us, you do not need to stay on. Nobody does. You can hop on off and go about your day. Final thing is, if you could also make sure that your screen name matches what your real name is, that helps me a lot because I'm the one who has to call you up. You can change your name. There are 3 little dots in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. You could just click on that and rename yourself. Otherwise, we'll rename you when I call your name. And with that, we will hear from our first applicant, Jeremy Bush. So Jeremy, looks like you're on. If you could turn your camera on and unmute yourself. And then you can proceed by explaining, how you ended up with your felony conviction, what happened afterwards, and why you believe you've earned the chance to receive a pardon. So Jeremy, please proceed.
Gotcha. My name is Jeremy Bush. I was convicted of a felony in 2000, January of 2000. I was arrested for OWI and second possession THC, which is the felony. I was sentenced to Huber, jail, fines, license revocation, and 2 years probation, which I all went through successfully. Brief history since then, I started going to Gateway Technical College. I graduated high school in 1999. So I didn't really know what I was going to do with my life. Started going to Gateway right around the same time, changed programs here and there. Finally got an associate's degree in 2005. In civil engineering with an architectural emphasis. So then I decided, it was right around the time I got a job doing trade show exhibitors. So I was a detailer, drafter, computer aided drafting. So I got that. I decided to pursue my bachelor's degree. So in the fall of 2005, I started at UWM in the School of Architecture, completed that spring of 2009, magna cum laude. And then that fall 2009, lost my job because of the economic downturn. So I was unemployed for about a winter. I started taking real estate classes in the spring. Finally got a new job with a mezzanine manufacturer in the summer of 2010. So I did that for about 8 years, designing mezzanines. Never really kind of gave up on architecture. And then I finally was awarded an opportunity in 2018 to start with a local architectural firm. So I completed the internship for the architectural licensing, the 3,900 hours or whatever it is, and passed all my 6 architectural registration exams. I applied for licensure with the state of Wisconsin in 2020. I was awarded license as a licensed architect in 2021. So that's kind of my professional and kind of educational career since my conviction. I also earned a pilot's license in August of 2019. That was kind of something I was pursuing for quite a while. Yeah, so that's my brief history. So I guess in terms of brief statement on why I feel I deserve a pardon or hope to get one. I've come a long ways since that 18-year-old self. I was really kind of struggling on what to do out of high school. Never really had any help, but I definitely, it was kind of a turning point for me in reality. And so I don't think I'd be where I'm at now if it wasn't for that. So I'm at a completely different part of my life and looking forward to what's next, I guess.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Yeah.
Questions from the board? Jerry?
Jeremy, in your application, you talked about how getting a pardon would help you become a licensed architect.
Yep.
And you've overcome that hurdle. Why do you still need a pardon?
Yeah, so when I started pursuing becoming an architect back in the early 2000s, it was actually part of the state statute that said you cannot be an architect if you were a felon, right? And so I have that printed out somewhere. And so for all those years in my mind, I figured I'd tackle that later. You know, I was still going to pursue architecture and get as far as I can. At some point, they changed the state statute, which I didn't find out until about the time I applied for this. that there was a predetermination application that I went through with the state to explain myself. Kind of I went to all the police stations, all the probation offices, got all my stuff together. And so at some point they changed the statute that said that you can't be discriminated against based on criminal history. So yeah, it's kind of a pain to with the FAA. I had to jump through all those hoops and kind of compile a whole booklet of information about myself, all my convictions. Same thing with the predetermination application for the state. It just becomes a big kind of production to explain that I'm not necessarily a menace to society, or I'm definitely not that person I was 20 some years ago.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions from the board? All right, well, thanks, Jeremy, for appearing before us. As I said at the top of the hour, you'll hear from us in about a month in terms of the outcome of this process, but hope you have a good day.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. All right, next we'll be hearing from Travis Nelson. All right, there you are.
All right. Good afternoon, board members. My name is Travis Nelson, and I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today and for your consideration of my application. I am requesting a pardon of a felony and 2 associated misdemeanors. The felony was for distribution of THC. As a teenager, I was the type of person who had a hard time saying no. A couple friends and I were at a party a few times, and they were trying the drug marijuana. I knew that some of my coworkers had access to it and that I could get it for my friends. I decided I could make some money selling pot. Eventually, I was able to get 1 pound of marijuana and make a couple $100 by giving my friends the smaller amount they needed. I did this for approximately 6 months. On May 12, 2003, I was arrested for possession with the intent to distribute. I sincerely regret getting involved with drugs, and I'm sorry for those actions. The associated misdemeanor number 1 was for providing false information to law enforcement. I was racing my Camaro. On April 20th, 2003, I was racing my Camaro with another friend who was in his Camaro. He ended up getting pulled over. I didn't. The passenger of the vehicle told him I was the other car racing. I provided false information and pled no contest. The false information I provided was when I was contacted by law enforcement, I said I was not the driver of the other car racing. I did that because I knew if my parents found out I was street racing my car, I was going to lose my car. I was a young adult who was scared of being questioned by law enforcement. I did not appreciate the seriousness of providing false information to law enforcement. I know what I did was wrong. The associated misdemeanor number 2, obstruction of an officer. When I was 20 years old, on November 27th, 2005, I had been at a party with friends and had been drinking. That party was at my now current wife's house. Her mom came home. I was scared and ran out the back door because her dad was a detective for Manitowoc County who already didn't appreciate me. Today, we get along great, fortunately. After the party, I made the mistake of driving a friend's vehicle without permission and while I was under the influence of alcohol. I was pulled over by a sheriff and was extremely scared and did not know how to react. He pulled me out of the car, provided the breathalyzer or the sobriety test, and said I was underage. So I was underage and over the limit. And he told me to go sit back in the driver's seat of the car until he came back. When I sat down, one of my friends were in there, and he said, "You're on probation. You're going to prison over this." And I freaked out and panicked and put the car in drive, and we eluded by the car, and then we continued eluding on foot. Since completing my sentences for these convictions, I have not repeated the mistakes from my early adulthood. I admitted that my actions put myself and others in danger, and I am sorry this ever happened. The accomplishments since my release. I was released May 2009. I've not repeated the mistakes from my young adult years. I'm a committed family man. I am married and have 5 children. My wife is legally blind, so I balance the work life and the home life to transport my kids, my wife, to doctor appointments, school, sports, etc. There's always something going on. I'm continued to be a committed husband and father. I've also achieved success in business. I started a successful trucking business, Extreme Trucking, out of Maribel, Wisconsin, or between Manitowoc and Green Bay. I started with 1 truck and 1 trailer out of a spare bedroom on my duplex. I currently operate about 100 trucks and 200 trailers. We provide refrigerated food transport of Wisconsin cheese, meat, and vegetables. We've become a premier carrier in the area. We employ approximately 125 total people with the trucks and office and mechanics. To accomplish my goal, starting Extreme Trucking, I had mentors along the way, like Mike McDermott with McDermott Transportation, who helped me obtain my CDL, because everybody said with my record, a DUI, a misdemeanor eluding, and the felony, that no one would ever insure me. He said when I got out that if I went through Fox Valley Tech, that he would make a way to give me the opportunity, because he knew I had big dreams of not just becoming a driver, but building a fleet. He held to his word, and I held to mine, and here I am today. I also recently received exemplary employer from Governor Evers and a workforce development for helping an 18-year-old with disabilities gain on-the-job training to build his skill base, and he is still here today. We also just won 2nd place Safest Fleets of the Year by Truckload Carrier Association, which is a nationally recognized industry association. So we're committed to providing safe roads and be the best of the best. We don't take shortcuts. I'm also committed to community service. I'm involved with Young Life in Green Bay, so I help mentor troubled youth. And we find that I relate to them well because I've been in their shoes. I can relate and show them that they can turn around and be whatever they want to be. Their current position doesn't have to dictate their future. I work with Brown County Human Services. I donate time and money to families with ill children. We recently, it was 2 years ago now, had a child in our community with cancer. I knew one parent had to relinquish her job duties to stay in Madison with the child, and the father also had to burn up all his vacation. We went in and offered to pay their mortgage for 6 months so they didn't have the financial burden on top of their kids having, I believe it was sarcoma earwigs. We work with local food pantries every week. Myself, and I usually bring someone from the office, because one of our company values is we give back. We go to the food pantry, and we help deliver the food. Since COVID, they don't allow people to stand in line or come to the food pantry, so we go out and help deliver it. During COVID, we helped a lot of the assisted nursing facilities in the area. When COVID first struck, there wasn't enough masks, so residents were stuck in their little rooms. We partnered up with a cloth company in Two Rivers, forget the name, and we purchased, I believe, 500 face masks and went and delivered them to the local homes for the residents, so they could actually get out, come have communal lunch and supper again, versus being restricted in their room. I'm requesting a pardon for the following reasons. As we grow, bidding on government contracts is important. So when natural disasters strike across the country, they rely on refrigerated trailers to bring in food or medicine and other types of things. With having a felony, I cannot bid on FEMA-based contracts. International travel can also get tricky at times, and sometimes I have to apply a year plus to be able to get into a different country, especially Canada. Before COVID, I did receive a pardon from Canada and full access to Canada. Then COVID struck, so I haven't been able to go to Canada. So I've been trying to work with an attorney up there. I think I have to reapply since I haven't been able to go, but they did grant me full travel back and forth. I forget what Canada calls it, exonerated me in Canada for all of my convictions, so I could go back and forth. But we do travel multiple times a year out of the country. for industry-related events, specifically our insurance. I also want to be able to service other boards for other businesses or banks. I've been asked multiple times to serve on local banks, but I cannot because the felony prevents me from doing that. I want to be able to serve on our local public office. I've been asked by members in the community to join a volunteer board in our communities, smaller communities. And my felony restricts me from being able to serve on any local public office or the town board or any other similar capacity. I also believe it'll help me with my continued mentorship. I can show youth that I mentor that if you stay persistent, work hard, follow your dreams, that you can achieve your dreams. Your past does not have to define your future. Walking in their shoes creates instant connection with these youth. I've been in their shoes, I've been in jail and prison and probation. I want to be able to offer hope to hopefully change the lives of others. I'm sorry for all my actions. It's embarrassing reliving them now. Some of them I didn't remember until we had to start peeling back and going through some of these records. For all the reasons I just mentioned, I'm hopeful the board will recommend a pardon today. On sentencing day, the judge told me I was a good kid. Go serve your time and come out and make the community a better place. Give back instead of taking. I did exactly that and more. Any questions from the board?
All right, thanks, Travis. Any questions from board members? Well, it's the benefit of being thorough in your presentation and application. So thanks, Travis, for appearing before us. As you've heard me say, you'll hear from us in about a month in terms of the outcome of today's process, but appreciate your time and hope you have a wonderful weekend.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up, we'll hear from Myron Smith. Here we go. All right, Mr. Smith, you've seen how this works, so I'm just going to hand it right over to you.
All right. First of all, thanks a lot for having me today to the Partner Advisory Board. Thanks for having me. My name is Myron Smith. I was 19 years old when I caught a possession with intent to deliver 5 grams of crack cocaine. I was young and misguided and made some poor choices as a young adult, just out of high school, and made some really bad decisions that really cost a lot of turmoil down the line. On the result of that, I did 30 days in Huber in Sheboygan, Wisconsin, which I did with excellent behavior. And after that, I did 3 years probation, which actually did such a great job. They offered me to get off in 2 years, but I couldn't afford the restitution fine at that time. So I had to finish completing serving the entire 3 years. But I still run into my probation officer now some days, like in the supermarket, Christina, and, we kind of talk about the progress in life and how far we both have came. So since then, though, I've held continuous employment since my conviction and since everything. I've also found a passion in mentoring. I've worked with the Black and Latino Male Achievement, as BLMA, and closely with the director, Linnell Ramey. And we went in and out of MPS high schools to mentor young children or juniors, well, actually all 9th through 12th grade, just mentoring. And I actually found a passion within that, sharing my story, sharing the importance of making wise decisions and the effects that it can have on your life, and not just your life, but your family's life. So that's something I've done over the years. I've also started a real estate investment company to where I work with the city to where we remodel and renovate distressed properties, just making certain neighborhoods just more beautiful and just more better looking. Just beautifying the neighborhoods. And Why do I deserve a pardon? Since then, I feel that I've grown tremendously as a man, a father, a husband. I've been married since then with two beautiful kids, a 9-year-old and a 3-year-old daughter. I understand the importance of making better decisions in life, and also how bad decisions can affect you down the line more than you even think. And just the overall, just to have a better overall moral compass. And so I recently working human resources with the families, a home healthcare agency, and I've recently been granted the opportunity to actually become a licensed provider myself. And with the home healthcare, we actually go into senior homes and offer help. We work with people with disabilities that aren't aware of these services, that they're available to them. So this felony is actually preventing me from actually being a licensed provider myself. So having this felony removed, now I can apply for certain certifications and licensing to actually open and create an agency of my own. And that's where we are today. And I just want to thank you guys once again for having me today and for the consideration. And do you have any questions?
Thanks, Mr. Smith. Can you talk to me a little bit about, you have that one OWI charge in 2014. What happened with that? Talk me through it.
Okay, what happened with that is I went to a Bucks game and I didn't realize that I hadn't eaten that day. In the midst of moving and working, and then I had a few drinks at the Bucks game, and then as I'm driving on the highway, I reached down, my phone is ringing, and I was already under the influence. So when I looked down at my phone that's ringing, it caused me to swerve out of my line, and that was another irresponsible decision that I've learned from and grown from. And
what was do you remember what your BAC was?
Actually, I don't. I apologize.
Did you do any AODA assessment because of that?
Yes. I actually went to an assessment, and I had to go through a course at MATC. I believe it was a 4 or 6 week course, and I passed that, and yeah, I actually did.
Okay. Jerry?
Can you tell us a little more about what Reliance Family Services, what services do you actually provide?
At Reliable Family Services, that's a home healthcare agency. So what it does is it offers seniors and individuals with disabilities assistance. So like if you need your house cleaned, if you need medicine reminder, if you need to ride to and from your doctor's office or to the grocery store, or also bathing, things of that nature. So we help seniors.
Do you have employees, or do you just coordinate all this?
Employees.
Okay.
Here, there's a total of 34 employees here right now.
Oh my goodness. Okay. And then I have just one other question. In your application, you say you help at your church with Sunday school administration?
Yes.
Does that mean you have to try and get Sunday school teachers?
Can you say that one more time, please? I'm sorry.
Do you have to get the teachers to teach Sunday school?
No. I just assist with coordinating it.
All right. So you don't do the hard stuff. You do the other stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm a minister. I know what it's like to get Sunday school teachers. So thanks.
Yeah.
Jeff, you had a question?
A couple of them. So following up on the questions you were asked about the OWI, then it looks like you had a couple of traffic citations in 2017 and 19 related to driving without a license and without insurance. Have you gotten that straightened out?
Yes, yes.
So you
Yes,
have a license now?
Yes, I do.
And then, and this is not uncommon, we hear this a lot, but when you talked about your offense, what you said was, excuse me,
God bless you.
you made some bad decisions and that resulted in you getting a conviction. But your bad decisions, you were in the drug dealing.
Yes.
Okay.
That
And
was horrible. Actually, bad wasn't the best descriptive word for it, but it was horrible. It was
all
horrible.
right. So how long had you been involved in drug dealing before you got caught?
Strangely, right? Strangely, I didn't have a long window. It was like it wasn't meant for me, right? I had some, I was misguided by some friends. I think maybe like that was actually my first time on that run. Like, believe it or not, that was my first time. Like other than that, I've never in my life dealt crack cocaine ever in my life.
So the very first time you were dealing crack cocaine, you got caught?
I swear on my kids' life. I swear on my kids' life. And I have 2 kids. Well, my very first time.
Sorry. At the time you were living in Milwaukee?
Yes, correct.
And you were driving up to Sheboygan to sell the crack cocaine?
Yes, correct.
Okay, thank you.
Correct. All right, thanks a lot.
Any other questions for Mr. Smith? All right, well, thanks, Mr. Smith, for appearing before us. You heard me say it before, you'll hear from us in about a month, but hope you have a good day and you'll hear from us soon.
Thanks a lot. Have a great day and thanks for having me.
Thanks. All right. All right, looks like Quentin's already on. So Quentin Williams, you've seen how this works, so please proceed.
Well, thanks for this opportunity here to hear you. In October of 25th of 1995, I was driving a car, and I was a bunch of kids in it with me. I don't even know their names. Never seen them since. But I come across another car. They flipped us off. It was a car full of kids. I chased after them, and I lost track of them. I came around a corner, and my victim was in the road along with another person from their car. And I tried to get around them, and I failed. And I struck one of them, and I drove away. My victim, I failed her. I let her down in the community. I didn't stop and help her out and assist her. I just selfishly left with this car full of kids, which the kids had nothing to do with it. It was completely my awful decision. But nonetheless, a few months later, cops came and talked to me about it, and I told them what I said, and I was charged and convicted March of '96 for a felony hit and run with injury. I was sentenced to a felony conviction, driver's license suspension, and a forfeiture, which was all paid. I did commit 4 more driving after revocations. 4th one, approximately a year and a half later. That was my last act of any kind of crime or such. I was sentenced to 45 days on the 4th, driving after rev on 4th. And I did complete that in the Rock County Jail. And I believe there might have been a fine with that, which was also paid. Since then, I've worked consistently. I was not given probation or parole or anything of that nature. Since these accidents, or the accident that I caused, I've gotten my HSED, GED, took classes at the technical college, and got to basically I forget what it was. It was generals, basically. But yeah, I've maintained employment up until 2015, and then I stopped work in 2015. I do community service in doing fundraisers for Huntington's Walk for America there. We local school district here. We do Secret Santa stuff. And yeah, and I'm looking for a pardon so that I can easily get to Canada, and also hopefully possibly run for a local elections, my district, school districts, or a board member. All I can say is it was an awful thing that I did, and I acknowledge that. I did send, I had no contact with the victim, but I did send a apology letter. That's the only contact that I've ever had with the victim since. And that's all I have.
Thanks, Mr. Williams. Jeff?
Good afternoon, Mr. Williams.
Yes, sir.
Do you know the victim wrote us a letter?
No, I did not.
So you haven't seen that?
No, sir.
You want to guess on whether she supports your pardon request or not?
I do not know.
She does support it,
That's
amazingly.
Unbelievable. That's crazy. That's powerful, to say the least. It's to have to go through something like that, and to, yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah. So, I mean, she acknowledges or points out that this happened when you were both young juveniles. You were 16 at the time. She sounds like she was about the same age, but she does support it. And then the other question I have to ask is, what's that life-size statue of Darth Vader in the background there? Or is that a Chinese soldier?
No, he's Darth Vader with my daughter. My daughter's a toy room.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Any other questions for Mr. Williams? Oh, Quentin, thanks for appearing before us and sharing your story. And you've heard me say it before, you'll hear from us in about a month, but appreciate your time and candor and hope you have a good day. Thank you. All right. Next, we'll be hearing from John Givens. I'll note that Jerry Hancock is going to be recusing himself from yours, John. But you've seen how this works, so please proceed.
All right. First of all, I would like to thank each of you for allowing me this opportunity to make a presentation for a pardon. I am John Givens. I came out of, I was born and raised in Natchez, Mississippi, and went into the military in '66, Vietnam era. I smoked my first joint in the basic training. That'll come important in a minute. But as I went through my time, I spent a lot of time in the Pacific, Guam, Okinawa, Thailand, but I, while I was in Thailand, I got involved with heroin. Okay, and it took a toll on me. When I came back to the States, I was sent from Bangkok, Thailand, I was sent to Niagara Falls, New York, and ended up getting busted for drugs on base. Got out of the military on a undesirable discharge, had that changed back about 6 months later to a general discharge on honorable conditions. But when I was released, I had the heroin habit. So long story short, I lived in Buffalo for a while, Buffalo, New York, because I got discharged in Niagara Falls, and ended up coming back to Chicago, and because I had relatives there. Chose armed robbery as a way of taking care of that habit. And came over to Wisconsin and got charged with with 3 armed robberies out of Milwaukee. I was given, I pleaded guilty to three armed robberies, supposed to be a 10-year sentence, but I got 18, 20, 15. 2 18s running together and a 20-year probation running wild with a 15-year state sentence and restitution. I went to Waupun with that. While I was in Waupun, I got they didn't have HSED then, they had GEDs back then, you know, and the HSD came later. But what I chose to do, you can do time one or two ways. You can do the time, or you can let the time do you. I chose to do the time. I got 3 apprenticeships while I was incarcerated. I got one as a silk screen printer. I got one as an engraver. I got one in upholstery. I have a degree in business. I have a diploma in merchandising that I received at Fox Lake. You know, so I chose to do the time instead of having the time do me. I went my last, I got to add this in there. While I was in there, I was paid my VA benefits for going to school. I got $444 a month for going to school. And just so, and a lot of work in mysterious ways, but I was able to assist my mother. My father was ill then, and he died a year before I got out. So I was able to assist her from being incarcerated to help her with his care, you know, until he died. That was a big blow for me because I came from a real close-knit family, Southern family, and my father came to see me in 75, August 11, 12, 13 of 75. He was only able to come in one time because he was sick then. But he came in, and but I never did see him again, you know. So I accomplished, I think, quite a bit while I was there with the 3 apprenticeships. I came out at a way better place than I did while I was there. And I came out through, it was then, they call it DAC now, but then it was Wisconsin Substance Abuse Treatment Program in Winnebago. And I graduated from that. I did my last 40 days at the Attic Halfway House on Dwight Drive. In 14 days, it'd be 42 years that I've been out. 42 years. And in those 42 years, I haven't been in nobody jail. I think I got two speeding tickets, you know, in those 42 years. When I got out, I started at for supervision. Bill Grossdown was my parole agent, and I was working at the Urban League, and I started at the Urban League as in a transitional job as a janitor. They sent me from there. I think you may have a copy of my resume. They sent me from there to Gardner's Bakery. I was the first Black baker they had at Gardner's Bakery. You know, woo, big thing at that time, you know. But then the Urban League had a reintegration program for offenders, and their philosophy was, what better way of working with a offender than with somebody who's been in the system. So I started working with them in the reintegration program, working with guys coming out of prison, almost a complete circle what I'm doing now. I stayed there for almost 5 years. I left there and I went to MATC as a minority recruiter. While I was there, I got my associate degree in business. Went to MATC as a minority recruiter, stayed there for a year. I also started my own business, office supplies and computer business. And I did that for about 3 or 4 years, almost 5 years. I started in Madison and ended up in Milwaukee because I was told that 87 cents out of every dollar that's spent in the state is spent in the Milwaukee area. So I ended my business in Milwaukee. And one of the reasons I did that was because I I got married, have a lovely wife, 3 beautiful kids. You know, now I have 8 grandkids and soon to have a 9th one. But I wasn't having the time. One of my goals when I got out was to have a family. I was 33 years old. I wanted to have a family. I wanted to be there when the kids was born. And I've been there. And but I have, like I said, I have a beautiful wife. I have a home now, you know. So but when I sold my business, I came back not really knowing what I wanted to do. And one of my friends was a juvenile parole person out at Wales. And he said, John, you should apply for this because they're looking for a Black in that position. I said, well, I fit that description. I applied for it. What I learned about the state is that when they open up a position, they already know what they want before they get it, you know. But they floated my resume around, and I ended up in a program called the Sprite program that support perseverance, respect, initiative, teamwork, and education. It was an outdoor adventure-based program for young men. We had 12 a month. Some came from Wales, some came from Lincoln Hills, and some came from the county as an alternative to incarceration. Our job was, if they finished the program, they went home. If they didn't, they went back to the institution. You know, that was one of the best jobs I ever had in my life because I worked with 12 kids. They hired me because of my past. And I always told them they was very smart by doing that because the kids would come in and they would gravitate towards me because, John, you've been there, you've done that, you know. And I helped quite a few kids we had 12 a month. And I did it for almost 20 years. Okay, I retired from the state in 2008. I retired to do another job at Mendota. It was the Focus program, which was turned into an incarceration program for youth that St. Charles Youth and Family Services Milwaukee had, and Dane County wanted to adopt that. So we tried that, and then after that, about 2 years, it sort of faded out. I started my own mentoring business, Crossroad Youth Mentoring Support Service, because I always had this passion for working with young men, especially 14 to 18 gangbangers, kids. They're not bad kids. They was misguided, misdirected kids, and with some proper guidance and proper direction, we can save them. I had 8 that I was working with that was doomed for the institution. 7 of them graduated from high school. And that was from the College, from West, and from East. Only one didn't make it because his mother thought she knew a little bit more. So while I was doing this, my mentoring business, Judge Mitchell asked me to meet him at the Union one day. He had just graduated from law school, and he was about to let Linda Ketchman know that he was leaving. He wanted to give him my name to take his place. But I told him I appreciated it, but my computer skills wasn't at an assistant director's level. So I declined that. But what they did was they brought McKinnon in to the assistant director position, and they called and asked if I would speak with them about becoming the Circle Support Coordinator. I did that. I started that in 2010 to today, you know. And what the Circle of Support is, they provide support system for individuals being released from the institution to help support them physically, mentally, and emotionally for making that transition back into the community. They can't do it by themselves. We operate at about 93, 94% success rate. Okay. And like I said, I'm still doing that as of today. I do InReach, where I go inside the institutions now. And I work with those individuals 6 to 9 months prior to their release to see what type of plan they have upon their release. No plan is a plan to fail. So within that 6 to 9 months, we try to come up with at least 2 or 3 different plans to help them once they get to the street. I meet them day one and start that whole reintegration piece back into the community. Love it. I'm also a 33rd degree Mason. I'm the Grand Deputy Inspector General of St. John Grand Council of Ancient and Accepted Scottish Rite Masons, and I'm responsible for the state of Wisconsin. I'm a Shriner, a member of Raven Temple #1. I received the Moses Transformation Forum Award not too long in 2020, and I want to go back a little bit. I was in 03. I received the late Judge Northrup Award. That was a special for working with juveniles. Just recently, a newspaper article was about 3 weeks ago, on the 13th, came out, Tales of Resilience. One of my volunteers that I worked with for 12 years, real close friend of mine, on his dying bed, wanted to write a letter to the newspaper about the work that I do and the commitment I have to the people that I work with. And it came out, and I don't know whether y'all had a chance to look at it, but it was a great thing. It's something that is near and dear to me.
I think what I'll
yes.
I'll open up, John, because you were very thorough, but you have a lot of ground to cover.
Yeah, I know.
Questions from the board, Jeff?
Yeah, good afternoon, Mr. Givens. I don't really have a question. I have an observation. And, we just alluded to part of it, which is, we are under a bit of a time crunch because we have a certain number of people scheduled and we want to hear from everybody. You're a person I could listen to all afternoon, have you describe all the things you've done. What's impressive to me is you said something about when you went to prison, you could choose to do the time or have the time do you.
Yes.
And I think people can go through their life in their community and either just sort of exist in their community or be part of their community. And you have clearly chosen to be part of your community and improve it. And I just want to indicate my appreciation for all you've done.
Thank you.
It's very, very impressive. Now, you have to understand that on the flip side of that, of course, is this notion that the crimes you committed were pretty horrific. Do you ever, so I guess I do have one question. Do you ever think about what it was like for the people on the other end of that gun that you used when you went in to commit these robberies to support your heroin addict?
Oh, yes. Yes, I do. And it's a frightening thought, because it could have went the other way. I could have hurt somebody, but I'm glad that it didn't. I think that I paid. My mother came up, during that time, and she went to each one of those individuals and offered to pay, but the state picked it up and said, well, no, a crime has been committed, and they all said that she apologized to me, because I couldn't do it myself. But yeah, it could have turned out a whole lot different, but in 14 days, it'd be 42 years that I've been out,
Thank you.
Where I'm going, real briefly on, I like to pardon because, I like to do some traveling, I like to fish and hunt, but I want to use it as a role model for the people that I'm still working with. I mentioned it to a couple of people, man. They say, oh, you going for a pardon? Man, let me know, because I want to try to do it. Hopefully it'll be something that will motivate them to try to do this in the future. I'm sorry if I took too much time.
No,
but
no, that's fine. It'd be nice if all those people that you're mentoring emulate you with all your community good works.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good job.
Oh, thanks, Mr. Givens. Appreciate your time and sharing your interesting story with us. And I agree with Judge Kremers. Exactly. You've done, incredible amounts for the Madison community. So you'll hear from us in about a month, but hope you have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, next we will be hearing from Getchell Jerome, or Jerome Getchell, sorry.
It's all right.
Sorry about
Can
that,
everyone
Jerome.
hear me all right?
Yep.
Okay. After listening to how everyone's been doing this, I'll just do a quick rundown. It was 1988. I was 17. I had just graduated from high school. A buddy of mine and I decided to move into a house with some other fellas in the city of Ashland up north. We had gotten bored, pretty much is what happened. And to spice things up, we started checking cars to see if they were unlocked and lifting cassette tapes and stuff like that. It was shortly after my 18th birthday is when things started taking a serious note. And that's when some of the other break-ins were happening and whatnot like that. And I was looking at where things were going and the type of crowd that I was with. And I'm like, that's not me. And that's when I turned myself into Bayfield County, along with some of the evidence or items that we had taken as evidence to prove that I had been in there. Since then, I've taken some college courses. My probation was supposed to be 3 years with my restitution being paid off. The restitution was a very, very high dollar amount that was supposed to be split 3 ways between myself and the other 2 parties of the group, I suppose. And we had myself, I was the only one that seen jail time. The other 2 saw prison time. So as they got out, they would start paying on the restitution, or they would get violated on their parole or whatever else like that. The end result was I ended up paying a majority of it, which was fine. I didn't have a problem with it. It got paid back. The victims got what they needed from it. So there was a couple of setbacks during my probation. I was revoked once, spent a couple of overnighters in jail. Just a reminder for my PO officer that, you're screwing up. This is what's going to happen if you keep it up. And as sad as it was to lose my grandfather, it was actually his inheritance is what helped pay off the rest of my restitution, so that I could take and finally start moving forward without having probation and parole and whatnot going on with it. So since then, I have been married, divorced, adopted my first wife's only child, worked as a salesperson, general manager, or assistant manager, I should say, at a convenience store up north. Decided that Ashland wasn't going anywhere, which is where I'm originally from, and went to the Schneider National Training Academy in Green Bay. There I got my CDL, started driving truck. Took a short break after my first wife and I got divorced. I started dating the woman who is now my second wife, and helped her raise her 2 children. She actually got her CDL, came out on the road with me when we started our business, which we have let go because she ended up getting sick. And I've been with Paper Transport pretty much for about 6 years. In April is how long I've been there. It was actually at Paper Transport about 5 years ago, I was given the opportunity to train. And this brings me to the end of my history, to where I'm at now and why I want to continue going forward with this. I had the opportunity to start training some of our lesser experienced drivers all the way up to new drivers, and realized I have a knack for teaching, which I didn't know. It was just something that accidentally happened. When you all have seen my letters of recommendation, especially from the 2 members from the Paper Transport Company, John Fuller has been a staunch backer of my staying with the training program. During this process, I wasn't sure how long it would take, so I told him I was going to step away from the training program for a little bit to focus on the case this hearing have happened sooner. which was fine. It still happened. That's all I was worried about. And during my research of continuing my job as being a teacher and an instructor, I have found out that in order to be a full-time instructor at a tech college, having a record isn't a good thing. They have a tendency of frowning at it, and you end up not getting hired for those positions because they go with someone who's got a little bit more promising of a background, if you will. So that brings it to full circle as to why I'm after a pardon, or why I would like a pardon, not after a pardon, would like a pardon and whatnot. So if I have missed anything, I'm sorry, but that pretty much brings us up to the current.
Sure. Thanks. Jerome, can you talk to me a little bit about in 2007? It looks like you were arrested, but the charge was dismissed: reckless use of a firearm, endangering safety, and disorderly conduct. What was going on?
There was a disorderly conduct, and it wasn't actually a firearm. It was a BB gun. It was part of a Halloween costume I had made prior to that year. And it was nothing more than a stage act to scare my neighbors who were using green lasers to hit us in our eyes when we were driving up our driveway. And all I did was I walked outside with what appeared to be a shoulder holster on, which was actually part of my Halloween costume at the time, or from earlier that year. That's what that was all about.
Okay.
So it was not actually a firearm. It was a toy plastic gun is all it was. So
questions from the board? All right. Well, thanks, Jerome, for appearing before us. As you've heard me say before, you'll hear about the outcome of this process in about a month, but hope you have a good weekend.
All right. You too, everyone. Bye.
Thanks. All right. Next, we will be hearing from William Schmidt. William, thanks for appearing before us. You've seen this, so I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thank you guys so much. I'm William Schmidt, born and raised in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, the baby of 7 children. A brief summary. I went to University of Wisconsin Whitewater. I was back home. It was my first semester back home on Christmas break, and it was the eve of my birthday. So back then, drinking age was 18. So needless to say, we and a couple of my friends were drinking, celebrating, and we came up with a horrible idea of dining and dashing, but pizza version. So we ordered a pizza to a address that was close to my friend's house, and we went there. And the plan was just to run out and grab it and run back into the car and go back home. And I will add this, that we all did have money in our pocket. It's quite embarrassing. But we did order the pizza to the house. I ran out, grabbed the pizza, and I ran back to the car. And one of my friends, which we didn't discuss anything like this, hit the guy for some reason. I don't know why he did. But we went back to my friend's house, ate the pizza. Within the hour, the detective showed up to the house, arrested me, my friends, brought us downtown. And this always stuck with me because it was a snowstorm. They said that they tracked the car and the footprints to the house. And I always remember this. He called us the dumbest criminals he's ever met. And not to make light of it, and from that point on, November, I pleaded guilty to robbery, and I served 2 years probation and was ordered to pay restitution, which my parents said, you got to pay that yourself. I decided not to go back to school, the party scene and that even though I was on the football team, I decided to come back and work with my mother and father's construction company. That's where I really just started to work, and because I'm more of a hands-on person than a student. And from that point, my mother, who was a great businesswoman, really taught me the business side aspects of a residential concrete construction firm. It's a small company, employed 4 people or so. And from there, I just started to work, got involved in church, gave my life to the Lord in 1994, became a licensed and now ordained minister who had the privilege of just this past September officiating my niece's wedding. That was awesome. But since that happened, my wife and I, who are ministers, have been really involved in youth ministry, especially on my side with a sports background, being involved in sports ministries I like to play basketball, but even though I played football, I like to play basketball. I find that's a great way, instead of to be able to connect with the youth and even young adults and adults. I'm able to share my story of what happened to me, the bad decisions that I made, the alcohol involved. And since that day, I should say that I learned I haven't taken alcohol or drank alcohol since then. There is a scripture that says that if you're led astray by alcohol, you're not wise. So definitely wasn't wise. So I put that aside. I don't drink. And really just, I've been working since then, working with our family business, married my child, my high school sweetheart, have 2 beautiful children. Let's see, I'm just looking at the notes here. Very involved in our church, the 3 churches that we've been to, always in the youth ministry. That's where I feel our calling is, into the youth. It's just difficult.
Oh, you're doing just fine, William. What I'll do is I'll open it up for questions,
Okay.
but you're very thorough, so don't worry about it. Any questions from the board? Jerry?
Mr. Schmidt, your application is really good, and it's very strong in all the areas that we look for.
Okay.
I have one question for you, though.
Sure.
Who took the money?
I didn't take it. To this day,
the victim says you took the money.
I know he did. I know I did. And I said that I didn't do it. I told my attorney I didn't do it. At this point, being born again, I have nothing to lie about. I didn't take the money. Now, if my friend Daryl did, I don't know. He didn't say that he did, but I was already running back to the car with the 2 pizzas in my hand. And
all right. Let me just ask a follow-up question.
Sure.
Your 2 friends were Black.
Yes.
And you're obviously white.
Right, correct.
So how could the victim have been confused about who took the money?
I can't answer that for him, but I did not take his money. I did not hold him down, as he said. It was my friend punched him, and that was it. And I was already running back to the car. No, I didn't hold him down. I didn't see if my friend held him down. I did not hold him down or go through his pockets or anything like that.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions for Mr. Schmidt? All right, well, thanks, William, for appearing before us. You'll hear from us in about a month, but hope you have a good day.
Okay, thank you.
All right. All right, Marcia, looks like you're all set. So you're the next one up, so please.
Ryan, can I ask a question first?
Yeah, of course.
Ms. Van, you related to the late Michael Van?
Yes, I am. That was a cousin of mine. That
Okay.
was my cousin.
And are you related to James James Morgan in Madison?
No, I'm not.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Marcia, please proceed.
So I'm here today. First of all, let me thank everyone thank you, the Pardon Board, for allowing me to be here. First, giving honor to God. I'm here to ask for a pardon for the 3 felonies that I have in my name, beginning back from 1990 with an escape charge. I guess I could start by saying that all 3 together, and I'll go into each one separate details, but they all stem from a life of substance abuse. I was addicted to drugs. I was introduced to drugs in 1987. And drugs became a lifestyle for me, a way of lifestyle for me. By 1990, I was totally addicted to drugs. I was living on the streets of Milwaukee, and prostitution became a way of life for me. I lived a life of prostitution and drugs for many, many years, going in and out of jail for prostitution, paraphernalia, things to support my habit as a young woman introduced to drugs. I had a lot of trauma as a child. I went through a lot of stuff that I was never addressed. Back in 1990, I was arrested for prostitution. I'm believing everything that I was arrested for then was related to my prostitution and my addiction. And I was sentenced to Huber at the CCC, and where I was allowed to go out for Huber childcare for my kids, which my mom had at the time. And I left and I didn't return. I was rearrested later, and I was given a felony for that offense. I went back out to the streets of Milwaukee and living a life of drugs and prostitution for more years of my life. And I was arrested for a robbery in 1995 with Mr. Brock, where at the time I was under the influence. Mr. Brock was someone who I frequently exchanged services for. I will not deny that. And this particular day, I wanted more, and I took items from him that I shouldn't have. But it was all due to the lifestyle that I was living, the drugs. I was sentenced to 5 years in prison. I went to prison, completed my prison. I never had any issues in jail. I was, the first time I went up for my parole board hearing, I was reduced and sent home in November of 1996. I was sent to the pre-release center to finish my sentence. I completed the pre-release center. I came home November 26th. I was discharged from jail, from prison, came home. I stayed clean for about 6 months, and I relapsed again, and I went back to the streets of drugs and prostitution. I was on the Milwaukee's ring list for prostitution. It was a dark, horrible life for a young woman in the inner city of Milwaukee. 2006, I was arrested in 2005, and I did about 4 months in the House of Correction, and they sent me to CCC again. And they allowed me to go out on work release, and by 2006, I think I got rearrested at the end of 2005. They sent me to CCC 2006, and I was able to go out for work release, and I left again. I was rearrested in October of 2006, and I went to jail. But what I'd like to say is, a lot of the stuff that I did in my life, I'm not happy about, definitely not, due to my life of drugs. there was not many programs for me. I had 3 kids out there were all born addicted, 3 babies. And then each child, I was released to come home with the child, not knowing anything about my life and a life of drugs and trauma and all the stuff. I was in an abusive relationship at an early age. I was living with an abusive guy at the age of 18 with 3 kids. He tried to kill me, and I was in a coma for 5 days, got out of that. And this is how all this tied into my drug use, numbing the trauma and the pain that I went through as a young woman. But time went on with my life of drugs. I finally went to jail in 2006, and I asked the judge if I could please go to treatment to this place called Maida House. The judge told me, no, not with the criminal record you have. I think the only place for you is jail. By the grace of God, I had a DA there, Deanne Hurd, who said, Judge, I beg to differ. I think Ms. Van should be allowed to go and get the support and the help that she needs. And Ms. Van is fully aware that she needs to swim or sink. I was allowed to go to Maida House. He overturned my cash bill, and he allowed me to go to Maida House. I can't say today I've been swimming ever since. I went to Maida House. I went to their residential program July 24th, 2006. I got out of their program and I went to a shelter, stayed at a shelter until March of 2007, got out of the shelter in March of 2007 and moved into their transitional housing. I stayed in their transitional housing and until 2009. But what was the turnaround for me in my life is I did a report with a journalist from the Milwaukee Journal, me and the director of Maida House at the time, Francine Feinberg, and I was her guest on the report. And after doing that story with her, the journalist contacted me and said, Marcia, your story was so profound to me. And I just want to know if I can help you in some way, because I talked about my criminal history and my criminal life of prostitution. And she said, I'd like for you to reach out to my aunt, who is the director of the, how can I forget this? Cathedral Center. And so I called her, and Faith asked me to come in and do an interview. I interviewed, and she said, I'll give you an opportunity to volunteer at the shelter for a while. And that's where I started out volunteering at the Cathedral Center. Eventually, Faith hired me and asked me if I'd like a position to work as a night shelter staff. I started there working as a shelter staff, and I was delightful. It was humbling. Nobody had ever really given me a chance. And then it was time for me to move out of Maida House 2009. I moved out of Maida House, and then they called me and said, Marcia, we'd like to know if you'd like to take a training to become a state certified peer specialist, working as a peer specialist. And we're going to offer you a position. I had to interview for the position at Maida House, and I did. I interviewed. I accepted the training. I went to UW-Waukesha and took the training for 6 months to be with NAMI, to be a certified peer specialist, passed the state certification. And I worked at Maida House as a peer specialist. I decided to go back, and I wanted to do more, even though I was still working as a peer specialist, the lead peer specialist. I went back and I got my substance abuse license and counseling. So when I started working with Maida House, I started working on a program called Families Come First, and it was working collaborative with the Bureau. I got a lot of understanding of women and substance abuse and how women are affected by it and their kids are. And that made me want to do more. So after working for Maida House from 2010 to 2013, I decided to re-enroll in School for Human Services, and I went to MATC. And I graduated scholastic honors from MATC with my human service degree. At the same time, while working for Maida House, I was taking care of my mother, who had Alzheimer's by the time I completed treatment. She raised my kids. 3 of my kids were place with my oldest daughters, it was just totally dysfunctional because I had lived a life of drugs and prostitution all my life. And so I wanted to change. Maida House helped me. It gave me it's one of the best things I can say. I thank the judge so much for allowing me to go to Maida House. I went back to school. I earned my associate's degree. I wanted to go back, while at the same time I took care of my mom, who came down with Alzheimer's. And I cared for her, and I went to school, graduated. I continued to care for my mom and work for supportive home care at the same time. I went back to school to earn my bachelor's degree in addiction counseling. I earned my bachelor's in 2018. My mom passed away in 2017. And I left Maida House in 2018. And I went to work at the city of Milwaukee as a parking checker. I just needed to take a break and find out something different for myself. I went to work as a parking checker, and then I got a call from my supervisor today that said I came highly recommended. They wanted me to come back and work with Family Drug Treatment Court. I worked with Family Drug Treatment Court when I worked for Maida House. I ran a support group for the women who had their kids taken out of their care, and they were participants of drug court. So I would meet with them before drug court starts and run this process group for support for them. But I came back to work for this. I agreed, I accepted this position and went back to work for drug court, which is the role that I have now in my life, working as a recovery support coordinator. And I work collaborative with the Bureau, Family Drug Treatment Court. I work with the individual court downtown for people who are in criminal drug court. I coordinate services for women and help them, support them, and inspire and encourage them to complete the services to reunify with their children, to maintain complete sobriety, and just help them to complete barriers and things in their lives that keep them connected to the drugs. I went on back, I continued to better myself. I wanted to go to school. I wanted a social work degree. I had applied to work as a social work, the social work program for MPS. And they hired me, but they denied me because of my criminal background. So I went back to school for business. I just earned my business degree from Springfield College, August of 2021. And I'm applying for the pardon to get this removed off I would love to have my social work degree.
Thanks, Marcia. That's quite the story. Questions from the board? Jeff?
Just one question. Ms. Van, good afternoon. Have you seen the letter that Judge Donald wrote on your behalf?
I did. I did.
Sometimes the applicants don't see those letters of support. And I know Joe very well, obviously. We're colleagues on the bench, but and I'm very familiar with the Family Drug Court because I started under when I was chief judge. So I know of your work, and very impressive. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for appearing before us, Ms. Van. You've heard me say it a bunch of times. You'll hear from us in about a month, but appreciate your time and candor with us, and hope you have a good weekend.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thanks. All right, we are now to our final applicant. So Lisa, if you wouldn't mind, thank you for waiting patiently here, but we are just about right on time. So you've seen how this works. So just kind of briefly walk us through how you ended up with your felony conviction for forgery and what's happened since then.
Okay. Thank you again all for taking the time today to listen to us. It's greatly appreciated. On November 5th, 2002, I was charged with a felony C, uttering forged writing. In March of 2004, I pled guilty to this charge. This day has impacted my life in ways a person never expects one's life to be impacted. However, by having this happen, it has opened my eyes to how not to handle company purchases and or work with family. In order for you to understand how the charges came about, I kind of need to go back to the beginning of my employment with Swanson's Heavy Moving. I started at SHM on October 8th, 2001, after my husband's first cousin, Cassie, called and indicated she was looking for someone with AR and AP, as well as receptionist background experience. She had heard from Chuck's sister, my fiance at the time, husband now, that I was looking for a different job. I was traveling to and from Rochester, Minnesota on a daily basis. I had been doing that for almost 2 years with the employer that I was at for 9. And I just kind of weighed my options and opted to change employment and accept Cassie's offer. After starting the job, I also became responsible for payroll, issuing checks to drivers and other personnel per the vice president's approval, as well as supply purchasing. This eye-opening experience really started in October 2003 when I was assigned a credit card by the owner, Harold Swanson, who was the president, as well as Josh Swanson, the treasurer, after we received an advertisement that came from First National Bank of Omaha for a promo credit card account. I had asked Joshua, who was the treasurer, about obtaining this due to the large volume of office and cleaning supplies I was purchasing, as well as just being put in charge of the Christmas gifts for the upcoming Christmas party. Derek had approved a dollar amount of $5,000. And I needed to ensure that employees were going to be satisfied at the Christmas party because it was the first big Christmas party the company had ever held. I had brought it to their attention regarding this because it was taking a long time to get reimbursement for my financial funds to come back. It could take 2, 3, 4 billing cycles before I would see reimbursement for the personal funds that my fiance and I were extending for the company. As I started to accumulate the gifts, the receipts were entered in the computer, as were all receipts, whether they were for supplies, any charge card, anything that was going to have to be paid out. They were put in the computer as directed by Cassie and Derek under the vendor First National Bank of Omaha and expensed to the employee expense account and then filed in the cabinet. Per direction of both Derek and Cassie, we stored the gifts in my home's spare bedroom, as they indicated the office was too much of a free-for-all for the employees to find them. Unfortunately, I became very ill the weekend before the Christmas party, and on January 13th, 2003, I had to call into work and was off work for the entire week. During my time out, I was diagnosed with cancer. This diagnosis carried with me throughout my entire sentence and for years beyond. Once in remission, it would recur 2 more times, most recently in 2018. I was finally deemed in remission after seeking treatment at world-renowned MD Anderson in Houston, Texas in September of 2021. While I was out, Cassie contacted me on Tuesday, January 14th, 2003, and asked if she could come and get the gifts from the house so she could get them wrapped for the upcoming Christmas party that was going to take place that Saturday. I had no issue with her taking the gifts. They were not mine, and I was not certain of my return date. I had substantial time invested in ensuring the Christmas party would be a huge success. I was finally able to return to work on Friday, January 17, 2003, and upon entry into the office, Cassie notified me that Derek needed to speak with me prior to starting my day. I was waiting in the conference room when Derek and Cassie both entered the room. I was notified I was terminated pending an audit. I was asked for my office keys, company credit cards, which included the Sam's Club and First National Bank of Omaha, and any other company issued items. They both informed me that they were performing an audit, and once it was completed, Derek would contact me. I have never heard from Derek or Cassie since that date. Cassie watched as I packed my personal belongings and walked me out the door. I had no idea at this point why I was being terminated. And every time I asked for an explanation, I was only given the answer, we are performing an audit. I had tried to contact Cassie on several occasions after this and did not reach her. My husband and I had spent quality time outside of office hours, as she was a very large part of our family and our children adored her, but I also wanted answers. I finally found out what was transpiring when I was contacted by a detective from the police department. All the receipts for every purchase were entered into the computer system. Receipts were then filed in a file cabinet, and Derek Swanson, who was the VP, had to approve any and all payments that were made. Derek went through the receipts on a weekly basis, and sometimes more frequently if the company finances allowed extra payments to be dispersed. There were instances when no payments would be issued. There were extreme financial difficulties, and payments were not being made as needed towards the end of my employment. Consequently, Swanson's Heavy Moving ended up closing the doors for good in 2004, shortly after my plea. On the date of my plea, October 20, 2003, Cassie moved to Alaska and was not available for testimony, and no one from Swanson's Heavy Moving showed up. Although I've had numerous misdemeanors charges throughout my adult life, they were due to myself relying on child support payments to manage my financial strain. I was not being fully cognizant of my true financial state after a divorce, trying to raise 2 young children, and never having a true understanding of what it was like to hold a consistent job at that time, as my ex-husband was never reliable to assist with watching our children. This situation alone made me realize that I was indeed guilty of a few different things. I did sign each and every one of the credit card receipts, and because of that, I had an obligation to plead guilty. There was absolutely no recourse to help me justify this to the court of my peers. The company had possession of the receipts, gifts, and supplies that I needed to realize, and I needed to realize my duty was to myself and the creditor. I realized on this day that many things happened in my case that could not be reversed, and being a naive young woman, I did not know what to ask or really where to go to get help that I needed. In speaking with my public defender, my fiance, and family throughout the entire case process, I felt it was in my best interest to handle the situation as an adult so that I could begin to move forward. Pleading guilty ruined my relationships with my stepchildren. I lost all self-confidence and self-worth in myself and felt like a complete failure. I do feel that this was all compounded by my cancer diagnosis, for which I had surgery, a complete hysterectomy, radiation, and chemotherapy, which I started at the time of my court proceedings. Since my court case, I have been able to make First National Bank of Omaha whole after petitioning to the court to allow all restitution payments be made to them. I realize that people make mistakes and can grow and become stronger because of them. I do believe I have done a great job in gaining my self-worth and self-confidence by obtaining an associate's and bachelor degree, as well as completing several coding credentials, becoming an essential and valuable employee. My fiance and I got married in 2012 after 11 years of dating. Having married a man that has been my rock since 1999, as well as raising 4 girls, watching our girls get married, as well as having the blessing of 4 grandchildren. We also started our own heavy-duty truck detailing business, and most importantly, I have had no contact with police since my case. My sentence was completed 1 year ahead of time. I had been sentenced to 6 months in jail. However, due to my cancer diagnosis and treatment, I was allowed Huber, medical treatment, and childcare, and served it on electronic monitoring. I was to have no checking accounts or charge accounts unless my PO approved, and I abided by that. I was not allowed to work with any money except for the decision that I had at that time. I notified my employer and owner of Family Vision Center of the legal situation immediately upon being contacted from the police department. Because of the nature of the offense and my position, I had offered to resign. However, he and his wife were insistent that I stay. I provided my DNA sample, paid restitution to First National Bank of Omaha, as well as my DOC supervision fees, and I had no issues with supervision. I actually completed probation 1 year ahead of time. I'm asking for a pardon for a number of reasons. The first being, I would like to be able to sit on the Professional Coding Advisory Board for AAPC. This would allow me to enhance my credentials, guide new coders, and ensure my continued success. The second reason would be so that I can become a Wisconsin notary. Being a notary public would help me build on my career as a clinical investigator, as I would be able to assist my employer in certifying records or audits that we perform. Next, I would love to be able to tell my grandchildren I can go on field trips with them. I've not had an issue with this as of yet, but our oldest granddaughter, Rhea, is 10. And there have been times that mom or dad have been unable to attend, but are afraid to ask me, so no one has been able to help out the school. Lastly, I want to ensure that all my voting rights are returned to active status. I was actually turned down to vote in the last election because of the felony, and I was under the assumption that I did have my voting rights reinstated once I completed probation, but our village board did not allow that. This is an extremely important commitment now that our country is needing each and every vote. And with that, I would like to offer questions.
Sorry, Lisa, you should have, you're off paper, your rights are by statute are restored. So,
sorry.
Jeff, you have a question?
Yeah, so I just reiterate, you need to go to your village board and tell them they're wrong. You do have a right to vote.
Okay.
Your right to vote was restored once you were off paper.
Okay.
But more to the point, it sounds to me like you're saying that your position is you did not do anything wrong with respect to these, either getting the credit cards or using the credit cards, that this was the people at Swanson and your former friend, your manager, sort of taking advantage of your situation and blaming you for buying things that you didn't have the right to buy.
Honestly, I am taking liability for what was done.
But how are you taking liability if you say that you had the right to purchase everything you purchased with the credit card because you purchased it for the company?
Correct.
So either you purchased things that weren't for the company or you didn't.
Everything that was on that credit card was purchased for the company use.
Okay, so what did you do wrong?
They're saying that I signed the application without their knowledge.
Okay, what are you saying you did wrong?
I am saying that I'm not entirely sure that Joshua signed that application. I am taking full responsibility because I did not see him do that in my site. And
But did you sign his name?
I did not.
Okay, so as far as you know, he signed it and everything
Correct.
you purchased with the credit card was for the company.
Correct.
I'm sort of at a loss as to why you pled guilty.
I pled guilty. As I stated, I did not feel I had proper representation from the public defender. She kept putting off my calls. She kept putting off our meetings. But I was at the point in my life with the cancer diagnosis,
Sure.
with everything coming on about, and my husband's ex-wife going on CCAP, finding the charges on there, and informing our children who were 11 and 6 at the time of the situation. Now, had I been given the opportunity to sit down with the children, I don't think it would have been such a volatile situation. Had I been given the opportunity to speak when I met with Cassie and Derek, or even speak to Deke, that was his nickname, his real name is Harold, or Joshua in person, I think it would have been resolved, but I was never given that chance. I was literally in the building on my last day of employment for 7 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Jerry.
I'm glad to hear about your remission. It sounds like an amazing journey, and that you actually got to MD Anderson is pretty impressive.
My sister actually found them on the computer a year and a half ago after I was diagnosed in 2018. And we kept going back and forth with the doctors here in town and going to Rochester and just not getting any better. She actually found that, and my husband said, "You are leaving today." I left on January 4th of last year, and September of last year, I was deemed in remission with I don't know what it was. All I can do is say that anybody who goes through cancer, has the same cancer 4 different times, cannot find any answers with your local doctor. You really need to go outside of the network. My sister and I drove to Texas. We were there 2.5 weeks. I came home and I flew there every other week until September.
Oh, wow. But let me follow up on Judge Krimmer's questions.
Okay.
The credit card to First National Bank of Omaha was issued in your name.
Correct.
Okay. And there was some letter saying that the credit card should be mailed to your home address.
Yes, Deke had signed that because he was going to be out of the office and Cassie was going to be out of the office. They had a fill-in temp person. So he had signed that letter that I don't have the letter in front of me, but you may, asking that card be reissued to me at my address.
Okay. And
so,
all right, you've painted a picture of the kind of chaotic situation there, but there's one point, and Judge Krimmer's touched on it.
Why did I plead guilty?
No. The question is, let's see, let me get the names right.
Cassie.
Let's see. It was apparently Derek. They found that the applications for the credit card had been forged.
That's what they're indicating.
Well, and you're the one that ends up with the credit card.
The initial credit card was sent to the office. Cassie handed that to me personally. It was asked to be resent to my home address. And I can't remember the circumstances, but there was something funny with it. And Deke had asked, and I'm sorry I call him Deke, but that's just what everybody in this town knows him by. He had asked to have it resent to me at my home address because he and Cassie were both going to be gone. Derek worked for the property management as well as Swanson's Heavy Moving, and he was upstairs. So the agency or the company hired a temporary person to come in and do all this mailing.
Okay. I understand that about why it ended up at your house.
Correct.
But so you don't have any idea about who forged?
I do not.
Okay.
I do not. I went to Deke and Joshua, who were the 2 people who needed to give me permission for that credit card. It's a very small, minute office. I was at the front desk, Joshua was right in front of me, and Deke was down the hall. So in order to get, Deke had the application, he signed it, and he said Joshua will sign it as soon as he comes in. Now, Josh, Derek, and Deke are father and sons. And so I don't know the dynamic of why the company closed. I don't know the dynamic of the finances in the company. I just know that when I presented it to them, because of the time frame it was taking for my personal reimbursements to come, Deke said, this is a great opportunity. It has great promo rates. And yes, we need to do this.
Any further questions? All right, well, thanks, Lisa, for appearing before us. You'll hear from us in about a month, but I appreciate your patience being the last person, and hope you have a good weekend.
You as well. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we have now concluded. So I will be making a motion to move into closed session for the reasons listed on the open meeting notes, including to consider specific persons, financial histories, and backgrounds. Is there a second? Anybody opposed? Hearing none, passes unanimously.